Thursday night, Krug show, Dieter's in the house, and we're talking Niners. Who stays, who goes, a little bit of that, a little bit of this, some questions down in Niner land. We got to make stuff up. It's the Cardinals. It's week 18. No, we're not going to make stuff up, but we are going to get into a lot of really, really juicy stuff. Dieter's in the house. We're brought to you by Better.
Always.
We didn't win this week, but we may win this upcoming week. We hit 3 out of 4. So, how you feeling, Dieter? You ready to roll?
Well, I'm ready to go 4-4, Larry. That's what I'm ready to do.
There you go.
With Better.
Pig in a pickle! All right, welcome to the Krug Show Thursday night. Hope everybody's having a great night. Warriors just had a great night with the Philadelphia 76ers. What is the Sixers? What a tire fire. Amazing. Golden State blows them out tonight. Welcome to the Krug Show, brought to you by Pig in a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out. They're in Emeryville. They're in Corte Madera. They're the best barbecue in the Bay. Get some brisket chili. Go say hi to Damon. Say hi to Mary. Tell them that Krug sent you. We're also brought to you by Sharp Corners Sports Cards and Collectibles. My good friend Anthony Catania. He's at 205 Cypress Avenue in Pacific Grove, California, along the Monterey Peninsula. So if you have sports cards or collectible needs and you're down in Monterey, talk to Anthony Catania. He's at 831-521-5264. Anthony gave me a very cool Jerry Rice rookie card.
Nice.
For Christmas. So thank you.
That's
Anthony.
awesome.
And of course, we are brought to you. This live stream is brought to you by Better, the official daily fantasy sponsor of the Krug Show. Use Better to make daily fantasy lineups and win real money. We didn't win last week, but as I said, we hit 3 out of 4. Me insisting on the Purdy rushing yards went to the well one too many times.
Yeah,
I've done that
been
before.
so good. We've been so good on that one. I thought they were going to play a ton of man-to-man. They did. Purdy just didn't run. He just didn't run. The windows were there. It was too busy throwing the ball to Ricky Pearsall, Larry.
That's right. And Ricky had a big night, and we talked to him in the locker room today. Download the Apple. Make sure you use the promo code Niners to get that first deposit matched up to $200. Everyone who does is automatically entered into a drawing to win a free Ricky Pearsall signed jersey.
How sweet does that jersey look now? Last week you were selling that jersey, and I'm the only one who was willing to buy it. Now everybody's like, I got to get my hands on that Ricky Pearsall jersey. It's so funny how this works, Lair.
It's amazing. You know, that's another thing that Kev has done well. He projected some success on Ricky Pearsall.
You mean he listened to Dieter?
Exactly. And he said, you know what? My dad's been ripping Ricky Pearsall. What can I do to really stick it to him?
Yeah.
And so he's like, I'm going to have a Ricky Pearsall signed jersey giveaway. My dad's going to have to constantly talk about Ricky Pearsall.
Nothing but time to celebrate now. We can all bask in the glory of one great game.
Seriously. Right now, Pearsall's on top of the world. Are you kidding
Should
me?
be.
And everybody who loves Pearsall, and I'm one of them, actually. He's a really good dude.
Oh, he's a great dude, and
I'm getting a little popping off the red mic.
Little pop? A little pop off the red?
A little popping off the red. I don't know why.
Let me fix that for you, Lair.
I don't know if there's any.
Let me drop that level for you, baby.
Maybe I got a little.
You know, a lot of Pearsalls and
a lot of Pearsalls, a lot of.
I'll stop being Sylvester the Cat with the thuckering thuckatashes, and we'll stop the we'll stop the pops on the mic. You would think that a goddamn mic cover the size of my forearm would prevent popping, but here we are.
There you go. I mean, it's a great looking Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer kind of
right.
That's kind of a look. Very the holidays and matches the background of the show.
That's the idea.
There we go. And we got the Better layout. Look at Better all over the show. All over this show.
Magnificent.
Really a great night. I feel good today because first of all, I'm rolling on the college football. Notre Dame had Notre Dame weeks ago. Told Kev weeks ago. Notre Dame's taking down Georgia. Took Notre Dame. That was the easiest play. Notre Dame's really, really good, and that's a well-coached football team. That's an underrated quarterback. They've got a really good tight end.
Yep.
tremendous secondary. Marcus Freeman is a really underrated coach, and they're terrific on special teams.
Yes, they
and
are.
they just kind of grinded one out against a Georgia team that's awesomely talented, but just not that Kirby's not a good coach. It's just that it's just not their vintage thing. And then Beck's been disappointing that he was out, the backup was in. I didn't even watch the game because I've been down at Niners doing the whole thing. I taped it. I'll watch it later. But Notre Dame covered, so that was cool. Made some cash there. Warriors destroying Sixers. It's 136-101 with a minute left to play in the fourth on TNT. And I didn't get a chance to talk to my good friend Kate Scott, but I'm sure she's in town with the Sixers, and I love Kate.
She's
but we're here to talk Niners, and we're going to get into a bunch of juicy topics. We've titled the stream, "Are Brock Purdy, Kyle Shanahan, and Nick Sorensen the right guys for the Niners?" We talked to Sorensen today. I'm going to share the screen here. Let me just double check something. Yeah, I'm going to share the screen. This was from yesterday.
Okay, so this would have been Kyle.
This is Kyle. And where is it? If I could just do the mechanics, just the mechanics, but just the basics. There we go. Hey, now we're sharing the screen. This is from Coach Yak's Twitter.
Okay.
And Grant asked the question. And I don't want to focus as much on Grant because I know a lot of people are Grant this or Grant.
This has always been a Grant first podcast, so that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. No, but I mean, Grant and I are friends, and we will remain friends. Here, this is.
Oh, I'll burn them because we'll always come back. Our friendship is so deep that I can burn them right here and now. And we'll always be able to come back to each other.
That's great. And my and burn away then. But here's my.
I'm not being sarcastic. I like Grant a lot. I enjoy talking to him immensely.
Hey, I'm on record as saying that Grant helped me at my lowest moment, and I will never turn on him. And I know there's lots of people that don't like him and this and that. Whatever, I get it. We've talked about it. We've talked about it ad infinitum. It's like it's been talked about. Let's get beyond that. And here's the question, here's the answer, and we'll talk about it.
That's great.
Are you frustrated with your individual performance this season, or do you feel like you control the things you could control?
I don't understand how to answer that question. I work as hard as I can at my individual performance. So I'm frustrated with our season. I'm responsible for everything. So I think you can figure that out.
Are you frustrated with your individual performance?
So what do you think, Dieter?
That's the right answer. Right answer, wrong tone. Going to look a lot better in print than it does on video. One of those. That's a fair question. Has Kyle Shanahan been good this season? No, he hasn't. I don't think it's been only his fault by any stretch of the imagination. I think you'd have to be an idiot to pretend as if Kyle Shanahan is the thing holding this team back from unbridled greatness. But he's part of the problem. His inability to embrace pragmatism as the season was crumbling around him and dire circumstances demanded dire alternatives to the original plan. He didn't do it. We saw him funneling the ball to Deebo Samuel in a must-win game against the Rams. Deebo Samuel didn't deserve the ball the way that he had played all year, save for one game that meant nothing in Miami a week later. You watch the way that they handled the running backs and how when Christian McCaffrey came back, he just went back as if Christian McCaffrey was the same dude as last year when he was overtly not. And you watch the way that they called plays for Brock Purdy as the interior of the offensive line was getting destroyed repeatedly, and how he called offensive plays against teams that were running the same stuff, whether it was in their own best interest or not personnel-wise, but they were just running man-to-man, press man-to-man, the same stuff repeatedly, daring the 49ers to do something. And does it come down to the players? Absolutely. They're the ones who have to go out there and execute whatever the plan is. So it will always come down to, do you have the dudes? Do you have the players? But these game plans, I just do not think we're anywhere close to Kyle Shanahan's best. And we've seen fleeting moments of excellence, that genius that we love to cite in prior years. And I am in no way advocating that the dude loses his job, but there's some warts. There's some warts. And I think it's a totally fair question to say, are you disappointed in the way that you've performed this season. To scoff at that and say, I don't even know how to answer that question. I mean, a little defensive, eh?
Well, I mean, okay, first of all, total fair question.
Yeah.
It's a very direct question when he is the central figure, because it really is
He's
saying
damn right.
like
He's
it's
damn right.
point-
It is all on
it's
him.
pointing the finger at him, going, "Hey, man." What's implied, I think, in the question, and tell me if I'm wrong. Maybe I'm
Okay.
wrong about this.
No.
But what's implied in the question is you've had a bad year. Like
Okay, I'll disagree with that. That's
you don't,
only
okay, you don't, okay.
That's only implied if you're anchored to that thought initially. Otherwise, it's a straightforward question. Brock Purdy would have handled that with aplomb because Brock's been asked that question in about 10 different ways. How do you feel about your performance this year? Is a very straightforward question.
Okay, wait. Let me redirect on this one. Do you think it's to me, it's the kind of question that if I ask it, I maybe get a different answer. Not saying any.
That's right.
Or if Jennifer Leachan asks it, maybe she gets a different answer. If Matt Barrows asks it, maybe you get a different answer. I think a lot of the scoff, the looking away, the shortness, and the kind of the attitude is all because of the questioner, right? That's
entirely.
That's I'm not, and you know what? It is what it is.
That's
I
fair.
mean,
He's a
I'm
human.
not going to evaluate.
He's
and
entitled to have those opinions
right?
about people who question
Don't you
him daily.
think if that question was asked by, I don't know. I mean, just any number of other people in different ways, don't you think he would have given it a little bit more than he kind of feels like he knows that Grant's mad at him or after him or whatever. He's decided whatever, whether he is or isn't.
Called for his job like 45 times in the last 5 years. You think that that's the guy that he might not be as forthright about admitting his shortcomings to?
I do think, without making this about anybody, but because I think it is a fair question too. Like, that is a fair question.
100%.
Everybody has to be evaluated. This is pro sports. You are the Super Bowl favorite, and you're not going to make the playoffs in what a lot of people think is one of the worst divisions in all of football. Mm-hmm. And
there's a conference that's gettable, extremely gettable.
In the midst of your go year, you didn't just go, you retreated.
Yeah. No, I listen. He understands.
It's fair.
It's a fair question. It could have been asked differently. I'm with you 100%. It's about who the questioner is. Now, listen.
Or the attitude that he gave there was totally about Grant
100%.
Asking the question. But unfortunately, that also kind of dodges the actual question.
No, there was no way for him to answer it other than to say exactly what he said, right? Because you can't say, yes, I'm disappointed in my own performance, because that lets your players off the hook, and it implies a level of culpability that then will get run with ad nauseum, right? Like Kyle Shanahan, you do, it's the exact same line. It's the same thing that Brock would say, right? These are the two guys that have to dominate on the podium week in and week out. Kyle and Brock have to give good answers at press conferences because they're unquestionably the leaders of the team by the nature of being head coach and quarterback in the NFL. And what would Brock say in the same situation? We're not doing good enough. That's on me. It has nothing. It's a deflection in that I'm not going to stand up here and get into the nitty gritty on personal evaluations because I can't win. The fact that you're asking that question, whether it's Larry asking it, Dieter asking it, Jennifer Leachan asking it, or Grant asking it, anyone asking that question, there's some answer that it's not coming from a place of benevolence intrinsically. Now, it can be coming from a less hostile tone, a less hostile source, to be sure. And as much as I agree with you that, hey, Grant is asking the question, so he immediately puts up his guard because Grant's been after him, right? Grant has, let's call it what it is. Grant has made a living out of calling for Kyle Shanahan's head, okay? And Grant makes very solid points. I don't agree with him. We can agree to disagree. None of this means anything. So when that guy asks the question, you're like, well, yeah, I suck. Like, what are you supposed to say there? If I ask the question and Kyle adheres to, and I believe that he does in these press conferences, the first rule of football, know your personnel. You got to know your personnel when you're at the podium too. Who's asking me the question? Larry's asking the question because Larry loves to get down into the nitty-gritty on football. And Larry cares a lot about the 49ers. Dieter's asking the question because Dieter's trying to outsmart everybody all the time. Like, if Matt Mayoko's asking the question, it's because he's trying to get to the bottom of news things. Like, I don't need to give everybody the scouting report on everybody in there, but Kyle has a pretty decent idea from having done this twice a week for the last 7 years. Faces, attitudes, expectations, how they're coming at you. So, yeah, I don't have any problem with him being a little bit snippy towards Grant. That's their relationship. They got a weird thing going on. God bless them. Maybe one day they'll meet under the Eiffel Tower and kiss. But to say that he's frustrated with the season and that's on him, it could have been said to a million different reporters. That's the only answer you can give in that situation. I would love if we lived in a world where the head coach of the 49ers would actually get down into the nitty-gritty on his shortcomings or misconceptions of his shortcomings, right? Explain those as to why he did that, as opposed to letting us sort of live in this ambiguity. But that's not the world we live in, and that was probably not the venue for such a conversation. So did Kyle do a good job this year? No, he didn't. Full stop.
Right.
He doesn't need to tell you that.
Here's the bottom line. I mean, a lot of football coaches, I saw Jim Harbaugh push back on this as well. He used to say, "Hey guys, look, I'm not here to peel the onion. I don't want to peel the onion on this one." He used to use that line.
Yeah.
We're not gonna peel the onion. I'm sorry.
Well, I'm trying to cook a stew, and we're going to need an onion, Jim. So
yeah.
I would really enjoy.
But that was one of Jim's famous lines, and it's basically like, "Hey, we're gonna, I'm gonna control this narrative. We're not gonna get into all these
I'm
soft."
just trying to give you some bullshit here, so I can get back to work. So can we just get on with the bullshitting now? No,
I mean, it's all the same. It's this. I just don't want to. I don't want to play. I don't want to play with the media and this and that. But I mean, Kyle does play the game for the most part. He does deserve some blame, but I think it's like, obviously, it's kind of obvious when you are the head coach. It's so defining that the team's record is also your record.
Yeah, I mean,
like
Bill
Bill
right?
Walsh's record is the Niners' record when Walsh was the head coach. The Niners' record is that is the ultimate evaluation. Your record is. So he's a 6-win coach this year. That's what he is. And so it's like he doesn't have to reflect on it because none of it's really useful, or it's like the one job. It's like the one benefit of that job is that at the end of the year, you don't have to sit there and go, if you succeeded and reached your goals, and if you didn't, and exactly, what the score was. And they're going to go probably 6-11. I mean, they might win a 7th game, but most likely it's 6-11, and that's bad. I mean,
well, I don't know who's going to look at the end of this season and be like, man, they had a bad year. Like, it crept up on them.
Predicted 11-6. So
well,
I
had them pegged as a 9-win team.
But how much of it's Kyle's fault? Okay, so it's all Kyle's fault, right? Because he's got the final say on everything when it comes to everything from personnel to everybody they sign, every coach. It's the Kyle Shanahan show. So when they win it all, it's like Kyle did it. And when they lose, if they don't win it all, it's Kyle effed up. So in reality, how much of this is on Kyle? It's all on Kyle's responsibility because he's the guy living in the $12 million mansion, making, whatever he's making, $10 million a year. And, but we've got a good chat here from Ken Ryu, probably not Ryu Ken, but it's typed in Ryu Ken.
It's a Star Wars thing. Don't worry too hard about it.
Yes, he said, without Kyle, we would still be going through coaches, all in capitals, which, that's means pay attention to that line.
You're coming a bit of Grant. You're coming in some Grant Cohn energy, and I'm not sure we're ready for it right now, right?
Yeah, exactly. Ryu Ken says he brought us back from the grave and made us relevant. Have some damn respect.
That should have
how
been
quickly people forget. How
So
quickly
interesting.
people forget.
Listen, let me throw this to you, Larry. So when people say
Ken's thoughts are very much the thoughts of lots of people out there.
that's a fun tautology. Who would have
I don't even know what that
done
means.
better? Who would have done better given the circumstances? So if we're saying how much of this is on Kyle, we get to now do the fun thought exercise of it isn't Kyle Shanahan's team. He gets fired before the season for telling John York that this is a room for real men only. History repeats itself. They fire Kyle. Someone else steps in, takes over this football team for a year. Do they have more than 7 wins if Jim Harbaugh is the head coach of the San Francisco 49ers again this year? Do they have 7 wins or more if Sean McVay or Kevin O'Connell or if Antonio Pierce was in charge of this team, do they have 7 wins still? Like, we can go on forever. There's obviously no end. If we the prime Bill Walsh comes back as an AI-powered hologram, what's the record of this team? I'm not sure that there's anybody who prevents a losing season from happening with this team, given the state of the roster. I don't think there's a coach that you could have had take over this team for this season that gets you into the playoffs or has a better result. I'm sure that we can nitpick and say, well, yeah, but only Kyle would lose that game to the Rams, or there's no perfect coach. There really isn't. I think that, yeah, it's on Kyle. Absolutely. They had a bad season, but who would have solved this team's problem, which is they didn't have any depth and they were injured coming out of their ears? Like, who changes
Also,
that?
have you seen the difference in the schedule from what they played this year to what they're playing next year?
Well,
Next
they better
year's
not
schedule,
fuck up next year, by the way.
No, but I mean, next year's schedule looks so cake. It's ridiculous by comparison.
Yeah.
I just think that there was just a lot this year. I mean, you play a lot of games. You start to run out of gas. You get a little older. But you know what the biggest question is, or the biggest issue is? It's none of that. It's what you just said. It's the depth.
Yeah.
I was looking at it today. I mean, I came up with what I think are the 5 biggest reasons the 49ers are at where they're at.
That's a classic Larry play right there coming up. We got the 5 biggest reasons. This is a pro's pro right here.
Yeah, this is like, this is a guy who's done some videos before.
This is 10 out of 10 stuff. Well, 5 out of 5, but yeah.
Yeah. And, I thought of it because I was driving down to the complex today, and I'm listening to Greg Papa on KMBR. And Greg said that Matt Miyoko had said to them either earlier in the day or maybe earlier in the week, I didn't catch exactly the timeline on it, that the Niners may release Javon Hargrave or maybe likely to release Javon Hargrave.
Yeah, post June 1, he's gone. He's gone post June 1.
We've talked about that, that he's for sure gone. I mean, and I do have my quick list of goodbye staying list. Here's my quick list.
Yeah.
Hargrave gone, Mooney Ward gone, obviously Campbell's gone, Feliciano's gone, Dobbs is gone, Givens, Brandon Allen, Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles, Isaac Yadam, Aaron Banks, Khalil Davis, Chris Conley, Eric Saubert, Elijah Mitchell, Javon Hargrave. Of those guys, they're all free agents except for Hargrave. I also think Juszczyk could be gone, Tayshaun Gibson, Patrick Taylor, Kalia Davis, Robert Beal. I think all these guys could all be gone. As far as who stays, the only guys I think are staying are Dre Greenlaw, Rock Ya-Sin, just because he is a youngish corner who really played pretty well this year. Ben Barch, because he's a versatile offensive lineman who can play maybe guard.
He was
if maybe starting right away. Curtis Robinson, because I think he'll be very cheap. He's rehabbing an injury. He's their NFL Walter Payton Man of the Year award candidate. Talanoa Hufanga, just because I really believe they love Talanoa Hufanga. And
so do opposing offensive coordinators.
Yeah, exactly. And he took a really bad angle in this game. That touchdown.
So you mean he played?
Yeah, I mean he's strictly
Brutal,
a box. He's a box guy
Just
who's really
just
good against the run and
put
sniffing
another
out
20
run.
pounds on him and just turn him into a damn linebacker. I'm tired of pretending.
Yeah, he's an underpowered linebacker though. I mean, you can't have him as a linebacker. I mean, he would have to
You
just
can't
be
have him.
Yeah, I mean, a Belichick would find a way to make him really useful in a defense, but he's got to be schemed around because he has real limitations. But
Big time.
I do think they'll bring him back, even though I'm not saying I would, but I think they will. And
Yep.
then the last one is Jalen Moore. So I just think Jalen Moore, I just think is he's been in the scheme a while. He seems really content being there. I don't think he wants to go anywhere. He'll probably sign beneath market value. I don't think he's been good enough to actually get a real offer somewhere else. So I think he winds up staying. So Jalen Moore, Hufanga, Curtis Robinson, Ben Barch, Rock Ya-Sin, Dre Greenlaw staying. I think everybody else is going, and Javon
Including
Hargrave.
I don't recall hearing Debo. I might have missed it.
Debo, I think, is staying.
Oh, okay.
I think he's staying.
Everybody
else that you didn't hear is staying.
I got 3
I
points
think
of
Debo
umbrage.
is staying. I think because you got to remember this: the guy who's making the decision loves Debo. So it's not about his contract. I think Debo.
The contract's like 50-50.
I think he wants to stay. I think he'll figure out a way to stay. I think Shanahan and him together will figure out a way for him to stay. That's my guess.
My concern with keeping Debo is that Kyle can't help but give Debo the ball, and that was legitimately one of the worst things you could do
right.
this season. Like, Kyle can't help himself. It's his favorite player ever. And for years, it was the easiest guy to call play. Like, you just think up new ways to get Debo the ball. That was a great offense because Debo Samuel was sick. His peak is one of the greatest peaks that I've ever had. I mean, obviously not like all time. He's not going to the Hall of Fame or anything, but like when Debo was the man, and it was fairly recently, it's hard to find a more enjoyable player to watch. I mean, that is like the epitome of a football player. If you're telling me who's a football player in this modern age, give me Debo Samuel. Man, he's got me feeling nicey, like John Gruden, man. But Kyle might need to be removed from Debo for everybody's own benefit. Like, they might have to take Debo away. Like, you got to take the toy away from the 2-year-old. Like, so they're going to keep going back to it. Like, you just got to remove it from the situation because he can't quit him. He cannot quit him. And I don't blame him. It's hard. It's hard to understand that your one true love is no longer the one
you're
going to
have to draft or sign him off the roster because otherwise what are you replacing him with? Ronnie Bell? You don't really have anybody.
You absolutely should be drafting. You should probably be. I think that there's a lot of very viable guys. You look at a lot of the good receivers around the league, kind of fringe fantasy guys. Like, they're just showing up on cheap. There's so many good receivers, and Ray McLeod was never like a great guy, but there's a lot of Ray McLeod types out there, and one of them might click for you because when Ayuk comes back, then Jennings goes into the flanker role again because Pearsall should probably be the Z next year.
I think they need speed. Give me a Tutu Atwell. Give me a Rondale Moore.
That's
Give
what I'm saying.
Give me a Nicole Hardman. Give me somebody with some.
And there are so many
speed that can
relatively
create separation.
cheap options. You don't have to go and get Tyreek Hill to get speed.
That's what I'm saying.
You can get one for $5 million, and it's like
Tutu
that's how much
Atwell
you're saving.
And Rondale Moore might be enough to complement what they got. I mean, but I do think Debo,
especially too, when you consider before Pearsall's breakout, so many of his routes were just clear out routes. And this was the same thing that happened with Ayuk. It goes all the way back to Marquise Goodwin. Like, in the Kyle Shanahan offense, there are guys whose entire role is to run as hard as they can, as fast as they can, with no expectation of ever getting the ball, but trying to convince the safety that, in fact, he is getting the ball so that it takes the top off of the defense so that the guys can do their crossing routes underneath and break up the zone, or in many cases, man-to-man. Like, Ayuk ran that shit forever. And then they finally said, okay, now he's deemed worthy enough. Now we're going to let him do a post, and like he'll get inside leverage on a guy and we'll actually throw the ball to him down the field. Maybe that was Brock showing up and it's like, oh, wow, there's more than 7 yards in front of the line of scrimmage that we can throw it to. That's incredible. But then with Pearsall, the 3 weeks prior to this, there's been so many clear out routes. Go get a guy with legitimately elite speed on the cheap to run the damn clear out routes. Like, if you have to have dudes running the clear out routes, don't waste a high draft pick or a lot of money on that dude. Go out there and do it. Deshaun Jackson, the Delaware State coach. Huh. Who would have thought? I wasn't familiar with his ability to wear blue, but here he is. Go Hornets.
There's there's a lot that we got a lot of topics we can get to as far as the Niners in the offseason, but
can I disagree
I do
with
think
three players that you think are going to go?
What's that?
I think Yadam and DFF stay. I think they keep Yadam because I don't think Yadam's going to have like a market, and they clearly like him more than most. And I think DFF, he's been in the system forever. Every year you think they're going to get rid of him, and every year he sticks around. He's not playing healthy right now. I don't think he's very good when he is healthy, but like good special teams guy. Clearly that's an issue for this team, so maybe up that a little bit. And then just going into the contract, like I have a hard time believing that they're going to dump Juice. I don't think that there's much benefit in dumping Juice because you'd have to post June 1 designate him, which you can do. Hargrave is going to take one of those. Debo would have to take the other one if you get rid of Debo. There's no fullback in waiting, and they still want to use 21 personnel. And Juice is relatively cheap because he took that pay cut before this season started. I don't think Juice has been very good this year, but he's still the best possible option you have. And I don't think Kyle's going to be willing to teach somebody how to be a fullback in his system without a full year on the practice squad at this juncture.
I mean, I think it's going to be Garendo. I mean, there's no question that Garendo is it could easily be that guy. I mean, he runs totally straight up. I mean, he has no body lean at all. You can see 31 very clearly when he runs.
The last 31 did the same thing, by the way.
He runs like this up.
Yeah.
He's fast, but he's going to take hits. So, it's like use a guy like that as a changeup. He's not a bell cow back. What they need is, they need a bunch, but they need a bowling ball back. They need a back that's powerful.
His name is Jordan Mason.
Yeah, well, I don't know about that. Jordan
Well,
Mason
if you're not using
runner.
Jordan Mason as the entirety of your offense for the first 8 weeks, he's your bowling ball. Now, I'm actually
I think
really
Jordan
excited
Mason is
about
probably going to be traded. I think they're going to restrict. He's a restricted free agent. I think they'll try to get cheaper. I see him being traded. They'll designate him a second-round tender. They'll trade him for a third-round pick. I think he gets
no one's giving you a third-round pick for Jordan Mason. In what year? 2039?
Well, I don't. I mean, you can designate him with a second-round tender.
No one's signing him.
No, I know, but you could probably. I bet you could get a mid-round pick for him. Either way, I don't think he's their answer. I mean, they had him this year. He's not really. He's another guy. Runs upright, takes a lot of hits. They need somebody. They're terrible in short yardage. I mean, they're bad on the goal line. I mean, the whole idea of going with Juice another year. What does Juice do? I mean, Juice doesn't do anything. I think it's time for them. You can't just keep doing the same thing and then expect it's going to be better with older players that are a year further away from their prime. I think you have to reinvent yourself a little bit and reinvent that fullback position as to what it needs to be, which is right now, what is it doing for you? Is he moving anybody in short yardage? He's not doing a lot for you. I think you need a bigger bodied guy, like a lineman, like Harbaugh uses Scott Matlock.
Yeah.
You need a big, powerful guy to move people in the run game. And then so you can get that out of the fullback. And then you also need a dynamic difference maker in the pass game, which can be Garendo. You can line up Garendo in the pass game and throw it to him from the fullback position. I mean, I would love it if that was the
case. I would love it if that was the world we lived in and other coaches would do that. But Kyle Shanahan has built an offensive system entirely predicated on versatility. And all you're asking for is guys to come in and do very specific roles and nothing else for you. Like, I agree. You can do so much better than Kyle Juszczyk as a lead blocker. His role is that Kyle still thinks he can do everything. That's his role.
But what is he actually asking him to do?
He's asking him to flex out as a wide receiver, asking him to be a lead blocker, asking him to be at times a runner of the ball, like he H-back, second, third tight end. Kyle's, again, this entire system, and there have been moments where you think, oh, he's actually going away from that a little bit, and then he keeps going back to it. The entire system is predicated on offensive versatility. Why is Debo his favorite player? Because Debo doesn't have a position. Debo plays inside, outside, running back. He does none of those things well anymore, but that's his favorite guy. Why does he love George Kittle? Because George Kittle is the best blocking tight end and one of the best receiving tight ends of all time. Like, why does he like Pearsall? He had Pearsall set up to throw 2 passes in that game. Why does he like Juwan Jennings? Well, because he's like a third down daddy, like that, and he's basically a tight end in the blocking game. The entire offense, Christian McCaffrey, is predicated on versatile players so that you consistently have a personnel advantage against the other team. Now we're going to put your team in base, and then we can flex with the same people on the field to now be in a more powerful set. And until they have somebody who can line up in 6 different positions the way that Kyle Juszczyk can with the...
What do you make this year?
I don't have it off the top, but I can pull it up.
You know how many touches he had?
Well, not enough.
23.
No, I don't.
23 touches for the year. What I'm saying is you have a high-priced fullback, and you're bad in short yardage. You have a high-priced fullback, and you can't score inside the 5-yard line by running the football. So you know what? It might be time to try something new. Get a bigger, more athletic body to move people, or get a faster, more athletic body to run by people. But to just go to, what, Kyle Juszczyk will be better at 33 for $4 million or whatever they're paying him.
I'm not disagreeing, but
it just seems crazy. All I'm saying is it's time to reinvent themselves.
You save a lot of money with the post-June 1 cut. You save about $4.6 million. But again, then the question is, do you have somebody that Kyle is going to trust to fully fulfill that role? And I just don't think that there's somebody out there who can do it. And I can appreciate that you're coming at it with, well, put Correndo there. But Correndo clearly can't fucking block, because every time they put him in the backfield for pass pro, he gets blown 13 yards behind the line of scrimmage.
I'm not seeing Juice doing all this awesome blocking. I'm really not. I mean, he's had a couple of nice blocks this year, but I mean, we're talking about a long year. This guy has not carried the ball in short yardage. They don't get creative with him. They don't like direct snap it to him in short yardage like he's the quarterback. They don't do anything. They barely ever use this guy. When they used him, he fumbled. He makes a lot of money. You can replace him with guys that probably steal a roster spot.
That's
my idea.
Guys.
Go get a bigger defensive lineman and get a defensive lineman. Have an extra defensive lineman.
Fundamental misunderstanding of Kyle Shanahan's offense. Fundamental misunderstanding.
They don't use him, Dieter. They don't throw it to him. They don't hand it to him. He barely touches the ball. What I'm saying is, you're bad in short yardage. It's time to reinvent Kyle Shanahan. It's time to reinvent what you do. Right now, he's coaching around the deficiencies in his team, and it's like, so you're going to bring it back with the same guys? I'd move on from him.
I can agree with you on that. I'm going to try to live in the real world and not expect it, because he ain't changing for anybody. He's going down with his ideals. This man has not a bone of pragmatism in his body. He doesn't.
Well, I mean, they're going to have to. You're going to have to improve somehow. I'm sorry. It's like you've run it back and back and back and back, and now you're a Super Bowl favorite that didn't make the playoffs. I think it's time to clean the house, man. I think it's time to sweep the deck and change. Now is the right time to make change for change's sake. Sometimes people say, oh, you don't make changes just to make changes. Now's the right time to make changes just to make changes, because you need to sweep the deck and start anew. That you're older and not as talented as you had last year. You had 9 Pro Bowlers. This year you have 4, or maybe it was 8. This year you have 4.
They had 4 alternates.
Yeah, but I mean, last year they had 13, I think, total in total. I think they had 8 starters.
Well, they weren't a shitty team last year, so there's your difference.
Yeah, but I mean, this year they're their star power. They've always been a star-laden team in the last few years. But now those stars have disappeared or gotten hurt or regressed, and the lack of depth is shining, really. I mean, it's the theme for sure. And to me, that's if we went right into it, and we're going to get into our better thing, but I want to play this one cut. But I do have the five decisions that they made that really sunk them. And I went and looked at this, but I want to share the screen. Kev tweeted this out. This is Sorensen from today. And before we get to our better lineup, I'll share the screen on this one. And this is Sorensen today being asked the same question that Kyle kind of evaded. Sorensen actually kind of addressed it head on. Here's Nick Sorensen earlier today.
That you did this year. Did you learn? Did you grow?
I learn all the time. I mean, it's for me, I'm harder on myself probably than anything you guys or anyone could say. So, it starts with, are we winning the game? Regardless of, obviously I want our defense to be top notch and be the best that we can be and grow and get better. So as far as evaluating me, I learned a lot. I have learned a lot, and I'll learn more this week too.
There you go. There's a lot of learning going on there. What should Sorensen? I mean, first of all, did we ever decide on your thoughts on Shanahan? Do you want Shanahan to return? Should Shanahan, is he the right head coach for the 49ers? And then would you say is Sorensen the right defensive coordinator, or would you move on from Sorensen?
If you're moving on from Kyle Shanahan, you don't have a plan. It is what it is. If 4 NFC championship games in 5 years doesn't buy you a pile of shit season, what does it get you these days? What's that worth? So, yeah, Kyle Shanahan should be back, because there'd be a lot of teams around the NFL with competent ownership who would fire their head coach to take on Kyle Shanahan and all of his errors and failures. Now he's got to have a good season next year. He can't just be riding on his reputation, which is well earned, in perpetuity. But yeah, if he doesn't get a year to prove it again, then we're not operating with a plan. We're just whimsical. And good luck with all of that. I've seen what that's like for the San Francisco 49ers. It's called the Bears West. It's not a good look.
He has more credibility than they do, even though they 100%. Have 6 rings and he has none.
Yeah.
In today's NFL, if the Niners fired Kyle Shanahan, they would be ripped, and they would have a hard time getting a big-time coach to come. What are you attracting them with?
Correct. Money, perhaps money.
But I mean, the same people
giving Kyle Shanahan.
The same people that hate Brock Purdy. Mm-hmm. If you hate Brock Purdy, by definition, you're saying that this is a team that doesn't have a franchise quarterback. And then you're saying
you're
that
looking for logic with these people. It doesn't exist.
I'm just saying, it's like, if you do, I'm with you as far as, it's not that I'm, has some affinity for Kyle Shanahan to the death or anything, but it's just that, tell me how you're going to do better. I've seen, I'm not taking your word for it, because I took your word for it when you dumped Mariucci, and I took your word for it when you said goodbye to Harbaugh, and what happened were decades of irrelevance.
Right.
So I'm sorry. I'm not taking your word for it. Kyle Shanahan has more credibility than the Niners do. And if they part ways from him, it will hurt them immeasurably, and they will not get a big time guy. I mean, I'll say this. I wouldn't even consider moving on from Kyle Shanahan until I had a signed agreement with somebody who I knew was better.
Right.
Which would be against probably league rules.
Which, again, how would that even come about? Like, what is the circumstance where you're like, I got somebody who's better than Kyle Shanahan, and I'm able to get them in a clandestine style where no one else knows? Like, again, do you have the AI version of Bill Walsh at his peak with all of the new rules and adaptations of the league plugged into the algorithm? Like, I go back to my question earlier. Who could have saved the 49ers in the head coaching role from this season? And I don't know who. I don't have an answer for you, because I think because the core of this operation when it comes down to the roster was so fundamentally rotten, and the luck was so unquestionably bad, that a terrible year was coming no matter what. One of the suggestions that had been made by those who don't think too hard about this stuff, and I can't blame them, it's a waste of time in general, was, go get Bill Belichick. He's a great coach. He would have fixed this. Bill Belichick is now the head coach at the University of North Carolina. He can't get an NFL head coaching job. I can appreciate everything that he did, but was that Tom Brady or was it Bill Belichick? Bill Belichick has a 400 record without Tom Brady as his quarterback. Like, when we're just defaulting.
That's so short term, too. It's like, is Bill Belichick going to make their, I mean, come on.
Because we all know about how great Bill Belichick's assistants
Bill
are. Bill
Belichick's 75 years old almost. I mean, it's a young man's game. I think that's just, there's people that call up and be like, why don't you get home? You know what? They needed to go get Holmgren. It's like, I'm sorry. Holmgren's like, he's a grandfather and he's at home with his grandchildren, and leave him alone.
The people say go get Ben Johnson. You don't know if Ben Johnson's a good head coach. He's a great play caller. It's great. Yeah. And by the way, pretty easy to be a great play caller when you have a bitchin' offensive line. Amon-Ra St. Brown and Gibbs. Yeah. And there's no question. Weapons. Same thing we were saying about Kyle last year, right? Oh, you have this great team around you. It's pretty easy to call cool plays.
He's got a greater team, though.
I mean,
this guy does.
I think
Ben Johnson's got a greater team because he's got the greater line. He's got a great line. He doesn't just have a bunch of weapons and a good idea. He's got a bunch of weapons, a good idea, and a great line.
I preferred the 49ers quarterback and their wide receivers last year. He's still trotting out Tim Patrick.
He's got the best line. I mean,
tight end.
You don't think that's worth the best line? He's got a great situation.
I'm not a big
I guess my thing with Shanahan. Okay, what is fair to blame on Shanahan? And I would say, what did Shanahan do wrong this year? Okay, why don't we start there?
Refused to acknowledge that his shit wasn't working against what he refused to adapt. He refused to acknowledge that other defensive coordinators had his guy pegged. He went all in on Deebo Samuel again this season, and he doubled down and he tripled down. And every defensive coordinator worth their salary looked at the Super Bowl tape, looked at Kansas City 2022 tape, saw what they did, and copied Steve Spagnuolo's game plan and took Deebo out of the games with press man-to-man coverage, and Kyle couldn't adapt. He kept calling zone beaters when he was facing man repeatedly, and he didn't he didn't adapt the offense, or at least his play calling, to better reflect the circumstances at hand, because he just kept trying to get the square peg into the round hole. And maybe that's a terribly mean way to call out Deebo Samuel. But he refused to acknowledge that this is no longer a cover 3 league. The 49ers run cover 3 because that's the defense that Kyle Shanahan hated going up against. They run a system with 21 personnel as its base that is designed to beat cover 3. No one fucking plays cover 3 anymore. It's Talanoa Hufanga doesn't exist in the modern NFL because it's not 2012 anymore, right? You can't have a box safety. Everyone plays too high. A lot of cover 6 in this day and age. A lot of movement. Somewhere in the last 5 years, remember when Kyle, he moves his guys around, before the snap. What innovation. 5 years ago, moving your guys before the snap was considered like bold and unique. They do motion on 75% of snaps. They're out of this world. Now it's commonplace, and defenses realized we can have everyone moving all the time before a snap. Why are we now totally subject to them, following them around and giving them keys on if it's man or zone or who's matched up where? We can just do crazy shit all the time. So long as we know where we need to be when the ball is snapped, we can be running around. There's no legal motion penalties on defense. And so guys like Todd Bowles and Brian Flores, especially Shula with the Rams, they're looking at this and going, we're disguising everything. We're rotating into single high, 3 high, 4 wide. We're going to rotate into everything. We're going to use motion against offenses. And Kyle was stuck 3 years ago. He was stuck 3 years ago in a league that no longer exists, and he didn't adapt. And by the way, it should be noted, Andy Reid had this same problem a couple of years ago, but he adapted mid-season, and the Chiefs went on to win the Super Bowl because that's what the Chiefs do. Kyle didn't adapt, and I don't know if that's because he didn't have the personnel that he felt comfortable with in order to change the offense, but also having different personnel should maybe incentivize you to change the offense a little bit. He just kept doubling down on Debo. He played Jawan Jennings as an X receiver. The dude can't get off the line of scrimmage unless you give him free release because he's slow and cannot separate. You're playing him at X? What are you talking? What do you? That's where Andre Johnson and Julio Jones played, and you got Jawan Jennings out there getting jammed up by little 5'10" guys, and that's going to be your number one read on most passing plays. You're going out there and you have Jordan Mason in the backfield. Now you're like, oh, I guess we just won't pass the ball out of the backfield anymore. Oh, whoops, our entire offense is predicated on being able to pass the ball to the guy coming out of the backfield because we put in an offense thinking Christian McCaffrey was going to play in week 1. And, oh, guess he won't. Guess he won't show up until halfway through the season. Oh, really missed a lot of training camp working on stuff that didn't matter for any of the usable portion of the campaign. Whoopsie days. Let's do better.
I mean, but you, even though you're crushing him, you still want him back.
Yeah, because
That
I've
seems a
seen
little-
him be great.
Okay. All right.
He sucked this year. He sucked this year. I never once
personally,
thought
I don't
he
think
was
he
the
sucked this
impediment.
year. I don't think he sucked this year. I think
He sucked.
the fact that you talk to him, he talks about, he gives it lip service that you need to have speed to make teams defend the entire field. So fundamentally he understands that because he talks about it, but then he doesn't have any speed.
Right.
And this team had no speed.
That's right.
And they had an opportunity to get speed, and they decided they didn't want speed. They wanted Ricky Pearsall and his route running and ball skills, and that's fine. But you still need to introduce speed to create space. And then they thought Jacob Cowing was the answer and Garendo was the answer, but then they didn't get those guys on the field, and they still haven't gotten Cowing on the field.
They can't.
And so they have a
trust Cowing.
relatively slow football team. So they don't have speed. I mean, they're not as fast as a lot of these teams. I'm looking at Detroit. Detroit's so much faster.
I think
Jamison
Gibbs is
Williams and
Oh my God.
and Jameer Gibbs. I
Just
mean,
those two
are
guys
so
alone,
much-
and then the suddenness
Laporta,
of
I
Amon-Ra
mean,
St.
they're
Brown.
all,
Yeah,
they're all faster. I mean,
but like
they're so much faster. You got JJ and Debo and Ayuk and Pearsall and Kittle. I mean, where's the burner? Where's
None.
the guy that makes you go, uh-oh? Where's their Jameer Gibbs? I mean, I guess it was McCaffrey, but as soon as McCaffrey was out,
it was
it's like
McCaffrey and Ayuk, and they both missed almost the
Yeah.
entire year.
and then you've got other guys who have, you've got this Abanaconda. He's got tremendous speed, but he can't get on the
He's not a
field.
good football player, Larry.
But I mean, yeah, we won't know if we don't put him out there and let him
I
see.
see.
We were all. This is a team that also didn't play Terrace Marshall. Watched him go to the Raiders and play a couple good decent games over there, looking better than Ronnie Bell. I'm just saying, I don't know that
I mean,
I
that's
think their
not a high
personnel
bar.
evaluation has been really bad. They had Oliver last year, and they kept Oliver, and they kissed
That was
off on
to
Deshaun
be fair,
Jameson.
that was a Steve Wilkes call to keep.
Yeah,
Oliver
and then
around.
but they didn't. No, that was Steve Wilkes' call to go sign him. But John
It-
Lynch puts together the roster, and you drafted those guys, you signed those guys. They're all your guys. You should take the best guys. This
agree.
year, they didn't take the best guy in Sam Womack, and they didn't adjust all year. He went to Indy, and he's playing well there. And they've got Yadam and Rock Ya-Sin. Now, I like Ya-Sin, and Yadam's done some decent things, but Womack was better, younger, cheaper, faster, and you drafted him, and you let him get out
Kind
of
of
there.
a shitty special teams player, though. I will say this: here's when you need to fire your coach. You fire your coach when you feel like the guy who is the coach is the impediment. So, like Callahan in Tennessee, when you feel like there's a lot of talent on your team, but your team sucks, that's when you fire a coach, right? And I'm sure there are plenty of people out there who think that this 49ers team is immensely talented because they're riding on the receipts of prior years. And I how many times have I been on this stream or any other going like, where's the talent? Everyone keeps saying this team is so talented. I was getting into it, KMBR calls every night. Oh, we're such a talented team. Where's the talent? You have a lot of names. You have a lot of formerly talented players, guys who can't actualize their talent, but there's no talent on this team. So maybe that's a point for Sorensen when we get to him a little bit later. But like when you feel like the coach is the thing holding the team back intrinsically, because if you just put somebody else in here, they'll be wise and they'll figure it out. That's when you get rid of the coach. I'll go in on Kyle all day, every day. I think that he held on way too long. I'm not going to rehash it all again.
Hey, let's hit better.
There's no one who's coming in. There's no one who's coming in and fixing an offense this bad. There's no one fixing it.
All right, this live stream sponsored by Better, the official daily fantasy sponsor of the Krug Show. Use Better to make daily fantasy lineups and win real money. Download the app below. Make sure you use the promo code Niners to get your first deposit matched up to $200. Everyone who does is automatically entered into a drawing to win the free signed Ricky Pearsall jersey. We'll award that on Super Bowl Sunday. All right, Niners Cardinals. Let's take a look at Trey McBride. He's been absolutely fantastic this year, over 100 receptions. 67 and a half receiving yards, 20 and a half longest catch.
20 and a half longest catch is a good bet.
You think so?
Oh, yeah. They push it to him on the sidelines. Is the wee one going to play quarterback?
I'm not sure. Let me see.
Yeah, that's a big issue. They got the CFL guy as the backup.
Yeah, I mean, let me see though. As far as
maybe we just take the under on everything.
McBride has got 104 receptions on the year.
Oh, he's unbelievable. He's fantastic.
He's
He's about the only player.
his longest catch is 37 yards on the year. Let's see.
Oh, he's got a ton of 20ers. I mean, every week I see him, and it's a bunch of 20s.
Let's see.
This is a team with bad linebackers and bad safeties.
He's had a 20-yard catch once, twice, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times, 8 times. 8 times. So, and in the last 4 games, what's he done? He had a long 34 against the Rams last week. 11 was the week before, 29 the week before that.
Listen, Larry, if you don't want to take it, I'm not going to fight you on it.
Let's see. Let me see. What else? That one, I'm worried about that one. I just
Okay.
feel, you know why? Because the Niners are great at avoiding explosives. They're not good, but they don't give up explosives. What do you think of the
Jameson Williams has a different opinion on that.
68 receiving yards?
Yeah, sure.
That to me seems like a lock. That seems like a lock. All right, let's go with that one.
Wouldn't it be advantageous to just take unders in this game because it's going to be such a weird game?
Well, because guys could be coming off.
Yeah, Trey McBride.
Only thing is McBride, I think, is
he going for some
probably the
record?
only way they can move the football. We'll see. I mean, I don't know. I mean, they got Harrison. They got some other guys. Let's see the Niners. Let's see the Niners side of this thing. The Niners side.
What do you got on Dobbs?
Is Dobbs going to play the whole game? Or maybe there isn't a Niners side.
Yeah, it doesn't appear as if there's much.
There's no Niners side.
I'm not sure Kittle's going to play.
They're not giving us a Niner.
I don't blame them. I wouldn't take any of them either.
Well, I don't think we can take everybody. Let's go Minnesota-Detroit.
That's a great
Let's take
game.
that Minnesota-Detroit game because that's the only game that really matters this week. Who do you like in this game?
Give me a Darnold number. What do we got?
Let's see Darnold. Sam Darnold. Ooh, lots of options there. 280 passing yards, 12 and a half rushing, passing and rushing touchdown. Or no, passing and rushing yards combined, 296. 23 and a half completions, 34 and a half attempts. They got everything you want there.
Let's go over on passing yards.
Over on passing yards, you like?
Yeah. I don't like where Minnesota's run game is right now. They don't seem to trust Jones because he's got a fumble issue lately. Otherwise, it's Cam Akers who's just not very good.
Detroit's pass D looked bad.
Detroit's D looked bad. They don't have a lot going
Detroit's
for them right
I think
now.
Minnesota's going to win that game.
I do, but I do think it's going to be a shootout. I think it's going to be pretty similar to the game that we saw on Monday. And, by the way, Detroit, is coming in a day warmer, I guess. I don't know what the right way to phrase that is, but they have one fewer day of rest. So
We see Blake Cashman. He's been rolling.
What a
5.5 solo tackles. Wow. 5.5 solo tackles.
I don't think we've taken a defender all year, Lair.
That's crazy. That's a lot of solo. I mean, that's he could have 13 tackles and 4 solo. That's still an amazing, he's also a sack master.
Very, very dependent on the official scorekeeper.
I like the half sack. Give me the sack. Cashman's been sacking the quarterback. Goff doesn't move well. It's on a fast surface. I think Cashman gets in there on Goff for sure.
Well, you got a Van Ginkel, because I'd rather have a Van Ginkel sack.
Yeah, Van Ginkel's pretty great.
He's unbelievable.
Yeah, no, look at that one. Oh, wait.
Is that 2.5 solos?
Oh, 2.5 solos. That's it. 2.5 solos. You want to go more? You like that?
Nah, I don't usually play IDP. In general.
Yeah, I like the Cashman.
Let's do it.
The Cashman. Yeah, Cashman. Give me a sack for Cashman. There we go.
We need one more, or we're good?
Do we need one more?
I don't know.
How about Jameson Williams? Let's
here.
see Jameson Williams. Seem like they've been featuring him a little bit more lately.
What's not to like?
24.5 longest catch. It's very fast. Very fast.
That's really tight.
I don't know about that. Where's the Amon-Ra stats? Let me see Amon-Ra.
Amon-Ra touches.
Yeah, I think this is an Amon-Ra game.
Okay, you want to take receiving yards?
Yeah, let's go. I think this is a 100-yard day for Amon-Ra.
They're going to have to throw it hot a lot because obviously Minnesota blitzes out of a lot of cover 0 looks and cover 1 looks, a lot of guys at the line of scrimmage. Good day to be a slot receiver because Goff's just got to get it out. Who's his first read?
What about Brian Branch? Brian Branch is awesome.
Great player.
Let me see what he's got. 4.5 solo tackles.
Just take, you know what? Honestly, take the under.
Yeah, let's go under. Let's go under on the Brian Branch 4.5 solos.
Now we're watching for this is a level of degeneracy I'm not sure I signed up for with better.
All right, let's see what we got here.
All
right,
day.
So we've gone 5 picks here, right?
Damn.
To win 300. Wow. 10 to win 300.
Get me back that Rose Bowl.
All right, we got
ticket.
Trey McBride over 67.5 receiving yards.
Mm-hmm.
Sam Darnold has to pass for 281.
Feel good about
Blake Cashman's got to get a sack.
Yep.
Which is going to be hard, but I like it. Amon-Ra, 76 yards receiving. Brian Branch can't have 5 solo tackles.
I feel very good about all of that.
Should we maybe try to go hedge it? Do they have that thing where you can hedge, right? Where you can.
You tell me. It's your sponsor.
I think there's a hedge.
Kev, can you help us out here?
Kev, can we hedge? We'll just, you know what?
Just can we cash out right now?
No. We're not canceling. We're not canceling. We'll keep the entry. We don't need to hedge. We don't want to hedge.
No.
Damn us if we tried to hedge.
Why would we hedge on greatness?
Why would the hell would we ever hedge? Okay, but thanks to Better for being a sponsor of the Krueger Show, and we're big fans of Better. What's MF? Larry isn't ripping Buster enough since he was on Gary in his show for years. Oh yeah, that's it.
That's
I don't want to rip.
Yep.
I don't want to rip Buster.
Yeah, heaven forbid Buster Posey finds out that people are talking bad about him.
Yeah, don't rip Buster.
Don't worry, I do that.
Brock Purdy.
Sure.
Tim Ryan. I'm driving down to Santa Clara today. Tim Ryan is on the radio.
Yep. He's one to do that.
The 49er Hour. And he said, I'm not really sure if they're going to, for sure, extend Brock Purdy this year.
Mm.
They may put that off. And it really made me pause for a second because the Niners are on the record as saying that they're going to pay him this offseason.
Mm-hmm.
But there has been some regression. Now, I personally believe, if you're asking me, Like, Krug, should we get off of Brock Purdy? Is he just not the guy? Because there's a lot of Niner fans that are very concerned. Is he just not the guy? And now the league's found him out. I thought Jimmy was the guy, and then they found him out. I thought Cap was the guy, and then he's not the guy. I thought Purdy was the guy. Now we're finding out he's not the guy. Is he the guy? And I would say, you know what? Brock Purdy's not an elite quarterback.
Okay.
But Brock Purdy is a very good NFL quarterback. I think he is between, as I said, 5 and 12, 5 and 13, somewhere in there, right in there.
Sure.
He's not a top tier guy, but I think you can win a championship with him if you surround him with the right cast.
Mm-hmm.
But everything needs to be right. And what does that mean? That means that you have to have a deep cast around him, and you have to I think he's a real competitive guy. I think you have to have a guy as his backup who literally could be better than him and play, so that he's got to play on top of his game. That's what I'm saying about Shanahan and all this, everybody's too damn comfortable down there. It's like, I really believe at the end of the day, that's really a major part of their problem. They've had some success and everybody's kind of running unopposed. And when you have an entire roster of guys running unopposed, that's not good. That's what you have at tight end. That's what you have at fullback. That's what you have at quarterback. That's what you have like all throughout this roster is guys who like showed up and like they ran unopposed. There was no potential that they would lose their job. When you have a whole roster like that, you don't have enough competition. They need more competition. They need more uncomfortableness. They need more guys who, don't let Kyle have his comfort blanket and Kyle Juszczyk. Make him go find somebody. And don't let Lynch just pick whoever he wants and, bring in a consultant and grow
because we all know the value of consultants in the modern era.
Well, I'm just saying, like, who
point.
hired a consultant? The Detroit Lions, and the Detroit Lions had an amazing run here.
I'm sure
they
had hired countless consultants before that, and they had one of the worst runs in the history of professional sports.
I'm just saying they brought in John Dorsey, who guess where John Dorsey showed up? In Kansas City.
He's
right around the time they grabbed Mahomes, John Dorsey was there. And John, so he was in Kansas City, and then now he's in Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
And look at those teams. Those might be the two best teams. So I'm just saying, it might be worth it. I know he's a little, old school and whatnot, but I'm not saying it has to be him. But I mean, you may want to bring in a consultant, put some new eyes on it.
Kyle's dad doesn't count.
Yeah, Kyle. I mean, maybe he does. I don't know.
I think they've gone to him a lot. In fact,
they're a little too comfortable, is the message, and I think they need to be a little less comfortable across the board. And that to me is, I think ultimately what I would want to see done. I was like, make guys a little bit more uncomfortable. Let's challenge the situation to try to make it better. But what I was going to ask you is, as far as
Purdy.
What's that?
Purdy?
Well, yeah, as far as Purdy, Tim wants to maybe potentially wait. And I can understand that. He has backslid. My plan would either be, Brock, if we're doing it now, we're doing it at my price.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to do it, if you want to go at your price, I want to wait and just dangle the carrot, because to me, there's all the benefit is really in waiting or having a little bit more cost certainty. I would love to see it get done. And I don't want to see them be cheap with him. I mean, he's earned a really healthy paycheck, but then there's this debate over how good is he? And then at what price point do you want your quarterback to be at ideally? Because nobody ever talks about that. But Prescott, no rings. Burrow, no rings.
Mm-hmm.
Herbert, no rings. Trevor, no rings. Hurts, no rings. All these guys, Goff, no rings. Almost every quarterback in the league who's making north of $50 million, has never won a ring. And maybe there's something to that. So what is the best price point for your quarterback? And should the 49ers, it's like, Dieter, it's like, I don't really know exactly what they should pay Brock Purdy. This is somewhat of an unprecedented situation. He's had a lot of success, but at the same time, he's regressed this year. It's a cap sport, so there's a competitive advantage in paying him less, not paying him more, obviously. But then you don't want to disrespect him either. So what do you want to do with Brock Purdy? I would say, Brock, here's 3 years, $45 million, all of it guaranteed. And if he says, hey, you know what? I want north of 60, now we got problems. And if he says, you know what? I want north of 50, there's some negotiating there. But I can't see record-setting money here. And I don't know if he, I can't see him giving them a hometown discount, and yet I can't see him resetting the market.
He probably won't reset the market, but he has every right to do so, given that it's his time to get paid. And he's a 25-year-old who's played in a Super Bowl. And there are 9 quarterbacks in the NFL with a $50 million AAV, and he's better than half of them easy. Easy. He's better than Trevor Lawrence. Jordan Love has done nothing. Jordan Love got a $55 million a year contract off of the back of a good month. 1 month. Here's all you need to know. Listen, I am absolutely content. Yeah, no, of course giving him $45 million for 3 years is a good deal. It doesn't exist in reality. You can offer that to him just as, anyone could go out there and hit on a supermodel. It doesn't mean it's going to happen for you. What's
he owed? See, that's the thing. What is he
He's owed whatever he can get. He's owed a free
exactly.
market.
So what is the market for him? Just because he's a free agent and he's up doesn't mean
he's not a free agent yet.
Well, I know, but just because he's set to be a free agent and his contract's due up doesn't mean that they have to reset him at the highest in the league. There's no law that says that.
No, but if they want to get him to sign on the dotted line, that might be what's required.
But the thing is, where's the leverage? Then
for him,
if the Niners said no, then
franchise
what
tag
would
him.
Be? Yeah, and then they could franchise tag him, and even if the franchise tag is going to be, it's
Here's
a lot
leverage.
Of money.
Here's his leverage. At some point, you're going to have to shit or get off the pot, and no NFL team is bold enough to let a good quarterback walk out the door. There's not one of them. Because Kirk Cousins, coming off a torn Achilles at age 36, got $100 million guaranteed. You think about this upcoming NFL draft. The quarterbacks suck. They're talking about Drew Aller coming out and being the first guy taken. I think Drew Aller's a very fine quarterback. He's not anything. Brock Purdy is unquestionably a better talent.
Where would Brock Purdy go if he were in this draft?
1. And by the way, he's the same age as a lot of the quarterbacks in the damn draft, thanks to COVID and transfer rules and all this crap. Oh, he's 1 year
old. Do you really believe that Brock Purdy would go number 1 overall?
Out of the quarterbacks? Yeah.
He's going to go in front of Cam Ward. He's going to go in front of Shedeur Sanders.
What has Shedeur Sanders ever done?
I don't like Shedeur Sanders that much, but he's supposed to go number 1.
Cam Ward.
Cam Ward I do like quite a bit.
I think Cam Ward's a fun player. I think
he's very similar to Brock Purdy. I think.
Yeah, exactly. He's a 6'1" gunslinger who makes bad decisions, but also gives you incredible upside.
Yeah. He's very much Brock Purdy like.
And he scrambles, and he's a little bit faster than you think he is. He's got some guile to him. I've loved Cam Ward since he was at Wazoo. I was telling people down in Miami, you got to go spend
some money. But he's a lot like Brock Purdy. I know people would be like, "What? No way!" Yes. He's
at least Brock Purdy came in without all the baggage of a Cam Ward, right? There's it doesn't. I want to make the point is that this is a bad quarterback class, and there are at least 7 teams that are desperate for a quarterback. The market isn't fair. The market is who's most desperate. You don't have to be the fastest in the jungle. You just can't be the slowest. And if you have 7 teams out there desperate for a quarterback who aren't going to get their guy this year, maybe one of them gets lucky, maybe 2 of them get lucky. Now you still got 5. And guess what, Aaron? Oh, then 3 other teams need one the next year. And it just keeps adding. And you're constantly in a position where a quarter of the league needs a quarterback. And Brock Purdy's out here, and we're parsing over, oh, should we give him 55 or 62 or 40? You're out here trying to figure out if your girlfriend's a 6 or a 7 or an 8. And other teams are desperate to just have a girlfriend. And you're like, I don't know. He's kind of got that lazy eye sometimes. And, it's just like, what are we doing here?
Stop.
What are you doing here?
Blowing snot rockets over here.
I mean, it's like, what are you doing? Oh, is Brock Purdy the guy? Fucking Brandon Allen the guy? Because that's your alternative right now, Bubba. Oh, we'll go get some guy in the 3rd round.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. I mean, we're in an era where, what's the story of the year? I mean, the story of the year is the Minnesota Vikings are incredible. Now it's Sam Darnold.
100%.
The same Sam Darnold that people were outraged in our chat just last summer about him being higher on Kyle Shanahan's depth chart than Trey Lance, who's Dallas's 3rd string quarterback.
I mean, and again,
and now people are like, Sam Darnold's God.
I
well,
like
and
Sam
what about
Darnold.
Baker Mayfield?
Is he bringing
Baker
Justin
Mayfield,
Jefferson?
all these
Baker Mayfield. Is he going to bring? Is he going to bring Evans?
I'm just
with
saying
him?
that the reclamation project quarterback
Liam Cohen
is out there.
Geno Smith's a reclamation project quarterback, and Seattle's been stuck in purgatory with him every day. And
I'm just saying.
Now they're wondering.
There's
if they
lots of different options
out
there. There's a lot of different options out there. If you believe that one of these cheaper quarterbacks was out there, it would be nice to have an extra $30 million to spend.
So they can go spend it on a defensive tackle who can't cover 2 gaps at the same time. I get where you're coming from, and that's fun game to play. But ultimately, you're betting on somebody who was available to you, somebody who hit the market in some way. You're hoping on that guy to turn into the next Darnold or Mayfield, right? And you know what? There's a lot of Joe Flacco's, and there's a lot of Kirk Cousins, right? And there's a lot of Aaron Rodgers where you think, oh, we got the solution, and guess what? We were wrong. Yeah, messed that one up. Oh, here's Derek Carr. Come on down. And as much as Kyle might be able to get the most out of guys, like Sam Darnold.
Okay, so Shanahan. So just to sum this up, Shanahan is the right guy. Mm-hmm. Purdy is the right guy.
That's right.
Sorensen is the right guy?
No.
So Shanahan stays, Purdy stays, Sorensen goes.
Correct.
Yeah, I pretty much say the same.
Yeah.
I pretty much say the same.
Second worst
I don't want to
rate,
don't
27th
tell
in
me,
pressures.
Don't tell me about, I don't want to hear about, I don't want to hear about, hey, well, they're this in yards. Okay, yeah. Are the 49ers 6th in total defense? Yes, they're 6th in total defense. They're 22nd in points allowed. All I would say to you is this. They're 19th against the run. All I would say to you is this. Do the 49ers, when you watch them play defense this year, if I said to you, that's the 6th best defense in the NFL, or if I said to you, that's the 22nd best defense in the NFL, what do you think they've played like?
I mean, I've never been impressed by this defense. I can't think of a game where I thought, wow, what a defensive performance.
It almost makes you want to look up
maybe.
The validity of the stats when you see that they were like 3rd overall in total defense like a couple weeks ago.
And this is why I can't take spreadsheet junkies seriously, because it cannot possibly be boiled down to this. These numbers can be flubbed. It's a lot like how, Major League Baseball teams boost up their prospect values by working the spreadsheets. This is why, as much as I enjoy analytics and think that we can find value in them, you have to start with the eye test. You have to start with a fundamental understanding of what teams are trying to do and how they execute it. To just go off of the end result, I mean, it's Machiavellian, and like it's laughable. The ends do not justify the means because the ends don't necessarily correlate to the means. This team can't stop the run. They're running a wide 9 cover 3 defense that doesn't have the personnel to do it. So they don't have a 2-line rotation up front, which is why in the fourth quarter they get pushed around and they give up yards in bunches. They don't have anybody who can cover 2 gaps on the interior because they got all one gap and go guys. And every offensive coordinator's figured out that you can run a pretty slick counter off of that, especially with these new insert motions that they're running. So you're now entirely predicated on having either 2 elite defensive ends to cover up for your shitty tackles or having 2 elite linebackers to cover up for your shitty tackles. And the Niners are down one of each on both linebacker and defensive end, which is why for one fleeting moment, you thought it was actually pretty awesome because Dre Greenlaw was in there and Leonard Floyd was actually playing his ass off for a game. And for one fleeting moment, you saw the 49ers defense in all of its glory. And then the second half started. So it's like that's you cannot operate as if, oh, well, statistically they were X, Y, and Z. It's just ridiculous. Watch them. And by the way, defense is so much about situation, right? Like I don't care what your overall yard total is.
The whole thing is situational.
If
you're bad in situational defense, you know what that's called?
Bad
Poorly
defense.
coached.
Yeah.
Poorly coached.
This
if
is
somebody,
an awful
if I said,
situational defense.
hey, they're really good defense, they're just terrible in situational defense. What would you say? Oh, they've got talent, but they don't have a good coach.
That's right. That's right.
That's the first, without knowing anything, that would be your first conclusion. And
100%.
it's probably not that far off from the truth. But I mean, Sorensen, it's funny too. My buddy Jimmy Shapiro sends me odds. And a few weeks ago, he sent me odds of like who was going to be the next head coach for all these teams that are rumored to be without, changing the coach. And one of them is the Jets. And Sorensen was like 50-1. He was down the list of like 20 guys for the Jets. And I mentioned it to him today in the presser. I'm like, yeah, you were, on the list because he was on the list of guys that I go, and he's like, I've had no contact. I've had no contact
shit.
with anybody. And some of the other meaty people after he left were like, dude, do you really think other teams are coming from this guy? I'm like, no, but I did see it. So he's like, I want to see where it said that. But I'm like, I couldn't find it in my phone. I tried to find it for him, but I know it was out there.
He felt
Believe
so
me, I
special.
wouldn't make it up.
He's felt so special for that moment, though. You made his day.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I potentially could be poached.
I'm so good at this, you guys.
You better lock me up long term because I potentially could be poached.
He immediately went to John Lynch's office and he's like, "We're gonna need to get a 3-year contract done. I'm a pretty hot shit out here."
John,
have you seen our?
Are you
EPA?
gonna lock me up, or is somebody gonna swipe me away from you guys?
Yeah,
we're not that lucky, Nick.
I do get the impression through a couple of conversations, and this can change. They were all about Steve Wilkes, at least when you would ask them in sort of semi-public situation. Behind the scenes, Kyle's like, I can't do this anymore. It hasn't gotten to that point with Nick. I think that they're going to use the injuries as an excuse for Nick, but I don't like what I'm seeing. Only caveat to this, you could have made the same argument with Robert Saleh after year 1. Could have made the same one. Everyone wanted Robert Saleh out, and
that's
I
right.
guess he's
That's
really
right.
Good.
And that's ultimately, here's the thing. I mean, I've said this 1,000 times. I hate repeating myself, so I don't want to say this 1,000.
I love
times.
it, so I'll do it for you.
Yeah, but here's the bottom line on it. We're talking about coaches. It's like Allen Iverson talking about practice.
Yep.
It's about
the game.
It's about players. It's about players. It's not about coaches.
It is about players, but I don't think that even
that's why the Niners have backslid. They don't have enough players.
No, 100%. But even and maybe I should hold Kyle to this same standard.
Shanahan has not had a good year, by the way. I'm not trying to say he's had a good year. He's had a horrible year.
But
as
I've
far
seen
as like
him have
what's
great years.
as far as what's fair to blame on him, I think the fair things to blame on him. I asked you this question a long time ago, but what's fair to blame on him? I think it's fair to blame the fact that he didn't put together a quarterback room that had an understanding of who his starting quarterback was.
Yeah.
His starting quarterback was a guy who's fully capable, but also and works really hard and is smart, but also needs to be challenged. And he didn't put anybody in the room to challenge him. Not
Lost
one
the chip
person.
on the shoulder.
Yeah, I mean, there should be
thing.
Zach Wilson should be in that room. Why? Because Brock Purdy's going to love him? No, because Brock Purdy's going to hate him, and that's good for Brock Purdy.
This
Brock
team
Purdy
needs a little less kumbaya.
Yeah, forget this. We all golf together. I want if you want the best, get somebody in there to compete, and that's what they need to do. They got to get somebody in there who can compete with Brock Purdy.
You build the best roster, and you worry about the rest of it later.
If you want to pay him now, pay him later. That's fine. If either way though, even if you pay him now, history says that usually you need a Hall of Fame quarterback to win a Super Bowl, and we pretty much know that Brock Purdy's not going to be a Hall of Famer. So
it might be an ipso facto thing.
But go keep looking for a Hall of Famer. Go keep finding the next quarterback. Go keep drafting quarterbacks. Go keep looking for that guy. And you were sharp enough to find Brock Purdy. You probably have a pretty good leg up on finding some talent, whoever's out there. Maybe it's Howard from Ohio State. Maybe it's Riley Leonard from Notre Dame. I don't think so, but maybe it is. Maybe it's Shedeur Sanders. Maybe it's Cam Ward. Figure it out and keep bringing those guys in.
Of course.
That is for sure.
They get a little too political down at 49-49. They get a little too worried about what it might be like, and then they totally forget about it with other stuff. But then they're so worried about locker room dynamics and all of these things. Go out and get the best players.
Get the best players. Screw your dynamics. You know what I mean?
They went out and got Darnold, and everyone thought that was going to be like an issue. And I'm not saying it wasn't. I'm not saying the media, our colleagues, didn't make a thing out of Darnold every now and again. And obviously the situation around Brock was significantly better last year, so he had a better year. But what's the downside? If I got a second-string quarterback bitching and complaining because he's not getting playing time, great. That's awesome, because that means I got a second-string quarterback who is good enough to where at least somebody's deluded enough to think that he can play. And it's going to keep a fire under my starting quarterback's ass. And I don't think anyone's entitled.
I'm pretty sure Dobbs told me today that he's not coming back.
No, I mean, why would he? They started Brandon Allen with a broken hand over him.
Right. I mean, I asked him how he enjoyed it here and what he learned from Brock, and he went off on all these different things he learned from Brock, but then he's like, I'll let my free agency take care of itself. In other words, I'm not coming back here. If he wanted to come back, he could have been like, I love it here. It's awesome here. It's amazing here. I want to stay here. We'll see if we can work it out. I'm not sure.
He's thinking he can start for the damn Jets next year. I mean, I'm now the Giants starting quarterback. He's going to go full Matt Flynn, win one game, and get himself a starting job next year from the dumbest team in America.
Yeah. So, all right. I told you that I had 5 things.
Yes.
And so I'm going to tell you the 5 things and
Let's
what
do
they
it.
are. 5 decisions that the 49ers made, or 5 reasons that they're at where they're at. Okay. And here we go. The first one happened in 2020 when they traded away DeForest Buckner for a first-round pick and then turned around and took that 14th pick in the first round in the 2020 draft and drafted Javon Kinlaw.
Mm-hmm.
They broke the cardinal rule is you never part with guys in your front 7 that cause double teams in the prime of their career. And that's exactly what they did. They traded away DeForest Buckner, who they had drafted. Great guy, knew their culture, was their culture.
Mm-hmm.
In the prime of his career, they traded him away because of his cap number and his agent. He hired Joel Siegel. They were afraid he was going to get to a crazy amount. They traded him for number 1, and then they turned around and instead of just trying to play the draft,
they went specific.
They just said, we're going to take this pick. We're going to get the best defensive tackle, and they forced the tackle pick instead of playing it more, playing it smoother. And
could have had Tristan Wirfs.
Yeah, I mean, they just blew that. They just absolutely blew that. And they devalued their front seven. They hurt the strength. Their stated strength of their team was, we want our D-line to be awesome. And then they made 2 moves that took their D-line from outstanding to a question mark, and they've never been able to get it back to that point. That's number one.
Spent a lot of money trying to.
Number
lot
one.
of money.
Yeah. Now they've got Hargrave, and I mean, it's just ridiculous.
Collins has been ass this year.
Yeah. I mean, so number one issue right there. That was mistake number one. Mistake number two. That was the 2020 year. Now it's mistake number 2, 2021. Trey Lance.
Goes without saying.
You know, you're sitting at 15. You could have stayed right there. Picked Mac Jones if you really needed a quarterback to compete with Jimmy. Mac Jones would have made more sense at 15.
I think they were at 12.
Okay, they're at 12.
Yeah.
Either way, they moved up. They traded 2 number 1s in the future, plus Lance, or plus their pick at 12. So they basically traded 3 picks. Mm-hmm. Then in that 2021 draft, they come out and they have 4 picks in the top 102.
Mm-hmm.
And they go Trey Lance, Aaron Banks, Ray Sermon, Ambry Thomas.
Mm-hmm.
So basically what you're looking at is between the picks that they traded to get Lance and those 4 picks, the Niners essentially in that 21 draft went 1 for 6 with their day 1 and day 2 picks.
Aaron
1 for
Banks
6.
Is not getting another contract, so that's 0 for 6.
What's that? And Aaron Banks is moving on. Yeah.
They're not going to sign anybody from that, including the 2 picks that aren't theirs, which, by the way, went to Miami and turned out, I think, one to be Jalen Waddle. Right. And the other one got traded for Tyreek Hill.
But they had 4 picks in the top 102.
Top 100
after they traded
starter.
for Lance, and they still wound up going 1 for 3. Banks is the only hit. The other guys were misses, terrible misses. And you set yourself back. You did find Demo Lenore and Hufanga and Jalen Moore and Elijah Mitchell on day 3 to save yourself to some degree, but that was that's mistake number 2 was the 2021 draft. Mistake number 3, the 2022 draft. The Niners had 3 picks in the top 105.
Mm-hmm.
And they took Drake Jackson, Ty Davis Price, and Danny Gray. And they did wind up taking Burford, Womack, Sakel, and Brock Purdy on day 3 with Kalia Davis. But right there, 3 picks.
That's unbelievable.
3 picks in the top 105, and you went 0 for 3.
Well, 2 of those guys currently don't have real NFL contracts right now, and the other one isn't around the team that he's technically on.
Yeah. It's just a total whiff. Total whiff. That's mistake number 3.
They got one player who's going to get a second contract out of that entire draft, and that's Brock Purdy.
Mistake number 4. Sadly, had to pick on Lynch, the 2023 draft. You had 3 picks in the top 101 picks, and you came away with Jair Brown, Jake Moody, and Cam Latu.
And
maybe Jair Brown's a player. Maybe Moody and Latu look awful. And day 3, I mean, you have Darrell Luter, you have D. Winters. But after that, I mean, Ronnie Bell, Jalen Graham, Braden Willis, Robert Beal, those guys have all busted.
I'm waiting on a hit here, Lair.
Yeah. So basically,
they had no hits in the 2023 draft. That's one of my favorite little nuggets. They just don't have any players that are going to get another contract out of the 2023 draft.
In 2021 through 2023, those 3 drafts, which essentially is the team right now, the Niners went 2 for 12 on their picks in the first
Banks.
3 rounds.
You're including
and
Banks.
With the hits being Banks and Brown.
Yeah, those guys aren't hits.
So the Niners went 2 for 12 in those 3 drafts.
They're not
with
re-signing
no
either of those guys to a second contract to stay on the team.
Right.
So it's not going to be a hit.
So 21, 22, and 23, those 3 drafts, the Niners, 12 picks in the first 3 rounds, 2 for 12, with Banks and Brown being the hits, no stars.
I also
The Detroit, wait a second, the Detroit Lions in that same window, 21 through 23, first 3 rounds. This is what they've got.
Mm-hmm.
Jahmyr Gibbs,
Mm-hmm.
Jack Campbell, Penei Sewell, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Aiden Hutchinson, Jameson Williams, Kirby Joseph, Sam Laporta, Brian Branch. I mean, dude.
Yeah, they went Williams
That's it
Branch
right there.
back to back. That alone.
That's it right there.
Well,
look at all those awesome players. They drafted their entire awesome team between 21 and 23. And the Niners went 2 for 12 in that same period in the first 3 rounds with no stars. None. And they've got every one of those guys I just named as a star for them.
Yeah.
Every one. That's unbelievable. So that's number 4. Number 4 was the 2023 draft. And the 5th mistake was signing Javon Hargrave and depleting the depth, getting rid of Mooney, getting rid of Manuel Mosley and Aziz Al-Shaair and Samson Ebukam, all these guys that Jimmy Ward, you got rid of all those guys and you gave all that money to Javon Hargrave, and then Javon Hargrave was terrible against the run, and suddenly you looked up and you're like, we're really bad against the run. I wonder why that is. Well, I don't know. Maybe you depleted your depth and signed one defensive tackle who's not particularly good against the run. I mean, it's just the way they've done this right there. Why are they now on their way to 6-11?
Yeah.
Because of those 5 reasons: the Buckner trade, the 21 draft, the 22 draft, the 23 draft, and the signing of Javon Hargrave and the moves that came along with that. Those 5 reasons sunk this team. And look what Detroit did while they were screwing up. Detroit, with Brad Holmes and John Dorsey as a consultant, were kicking ass, drafting stars. And now look at Detroit. Detroit's super loaded, even though Goff is just a guy. And people are talking about, oh my God, Goff's a god, and Ben Johnson's a miracle worker. But in reality, that's not the story at all. In reality, the story is Brad Holmes is one of the best young GMs in the game, and John Dorsey is an old head, and those two got together and put together just an amazing run of personnel, and that's why they're at. Now, I'm not saying Ben Johnson's not good and Goff's not good, but Brock Purdy and Kyle Shanahan would look a whole lot better if they had those weapons in that line.
They wouldn't have jobs if they didn't luck out with Brock Purdy.
So it does make you wonder how this thing is going to get better for the Niners, because they
had a great draft in 24.
They had a great draft in 24. Yeah, that's right.
That's the only way. That's the only way. They have to do it again.
They have to keep replicating what they did in 2024.
I gave them an A grade in 24 at the time. August, I'm looking at a column right now. August 28th, 49ers are still paying for the disastrous Trey Lance pick. Exactly everything. When you do 3 shit drafts in a row, you now have a roster that is fundamentally rotten at the core, and you are overly dependent on star players who have played a lot of football and who cannot be trusted because of the nature of the game of football to perform at that same level year in and year out. It just doesn't work that way. So they go dumpster diving a lot. They get a lot of guys off the street to play serious roles on special teams, or hell, even start. They signed a dude off a Disney cruise to be their nickelback for the Super Bowl. Like, it's incredible they had as much success as they did, given the fact that they had drafted so disastrously, so consistently. And yeah, if they didn't luck out by getting the last pick of the draft as right as anyone's ever gotten a draft pick, and I'm not including all the other day 3 wins that they've had, right? Think about the foundation of this team. How many of them were first-round picks? Deebo Samuel, second-round pick. Early, but second-round pick. George
Bosa.
Kittle, fifth-round pick.
Bosa,
Yeah, Bosa.
Ayuk.
Bosa and Ayuk. That's it.
It's because they struck out in the first round every time.
That's
I
right.
mean, they had McGlinchey, They let him get away because they didn't want to pay him. Probably
has
smart.
that look dumb? I mean, they're paying.
Well,
Colton
it
McKivitz
sure looks
scraps.
dumb to take a right tackle with the 9th pick in the first round. Yeah.
Well, they did it with
dumb.
Penei Sewell with the Lions. That's a little different.
Yeah, but
get the
Penei
guy.
Sewell's the best tackle in the game.
I know, but he's a right tackle. They
Yeah,
picked him
but I
early.
mean, he's literally the best offensive lineman in the game. McGlinchey, I'm not
There
even
was no
100% sure
projected-
McKivitz is worse than McGlinchey. I mean,
That's what I'm saying. Like, you can pay somebody $7 million a year to be Colton McKivitz, who's arguably been their best offensive lineman this season.
it just comes down to who you pick, and it's like if you pick right, you draft well, then I get the sense too. It's so much more about that because I get the sense that there's not a lot of even though you would like to think there's lots of coaching, that in reality it's like these players are it's more about the players than it is about how well they're coached. So it's like it's really more about picking the right players than it is about coaching them up. And I the more time goes on, the more I really believe that. And and if you want to look at the greatest teams in the history of the NFL, go look at what the Cowboys did in the draft in 88 and 89 and 90. You want to look at what the 85 Bears, go look what Jim Finks did in the draft, 81, 82, 83. If you want to know why the Niners were so awesome in the late 80s, 88, 89, 90, they won 2 Super Bowls, almost won 3 in a row. It's because they drafted Jerry Rice in 85, and the 86 draft was like 9 or 10 deep, and they were all starters. Well, guess what? You have a 9-person draft, 10-person draft, all these good young players. All of a sudden, you've got this core of a really good young football team. So, there's no secret to it. It's just why the Lions really good right now because they kicked ass in the last, the 3 drafts prior to this one. Why are the Niners regressing? Because they got their ass kicked in those drafts. It's really as simple as that. So
there's no modern sport in which you can buy a championship. You can maybe make the argument that you could have done it in baseball going into about 2000, but once the luxury tax came into play, competitive balance tax, whatever you want to call it, I don't think you can do it in baseball. Sorry for anybody who wants to believe that the Dodgers are playing some unfair game. You certainly can't do it in basketball. We see what happens when teams try to buy it. It usually goes pretty disastrously. And then hockey, sure as hell can't. You think about, the great hockey teams, you're not buying squat. They don't have enough of a salary cap. You're losing dudes left, right, and center. You have to draft. It's about depth. That's a depth sport if there ever was one. And football's a depth sport. I mean, we might talk head coach and quarterback all the time. We might talk about flashy wide receivers and great running backs. This is a depth sport. And the Detroit Lions aren't going to win the Super Bowl this year, not because they don't have awesome fucking players, but because their defense is so injured, they can't win the Super Bowl.
Well, they lost Montgomery. You got to be able to score touchdowns inside the 5,
right.
Running the ball.
So because of bad luck, that's bad luck. That's a deep team, and that's still bad luck. They weren't deep enough to overcome a really shitty hand. Yeah. So
it appears.
It appears. That's my guess. And
who do you like, by the way, right now, as we sit here on the 2nd of January? If you're sitting, what do you got?
Changed since the preseason. It's Green Bay.
Really? I had Niners and Texans in the preseason.
I had Green Bay, Kansas City before the season started.
Look at you.
I feel better about Kansas City today than I do about Green Bay, which is not something I would have said about 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, there's something not right about Green Bay. I'm telling you, I watched Green Bay. Green Bay, LaFleur gives Love weird looks. Love gives LaFleur weird looks.
Yep.
They have this weird vibe that feels like
they don't trust
are
each
like
other.
They're like the little brother syndrome. They can't beat any of the best teams. I don't know if it's lack of leadership, lack of belief. They're really, really good, and they crucify. If it's like Packers Raiders, I mean, bet it all day, every day. Packers win, they cover. But if it's Packers Lions, take the Lions. If it's Packers Vikings, take the Vikings. If it's Packers anybody, it's like Philly, take Philly. Packers don't seem like they stand up to any of these big time teams. They really didn't stand up to the Niners until the Niners were just totally depleted either.
Yeah.
So
it's the youngest team in the NFL. So that's
they're very young. They're very talented. Very talented.
It's just honestly because I'm holding on to it. Like if I'm coming at it from an objective viewpoint, I'm not taking the Packers, but I had them early and they're still in it, so I might as well hang around with it.
Yeah. Well, I'm going now. Now I'm gonna Kansas City. How do you go against Kansas City at this point?
You don't.
But I would say something tells me it's Buffalo.
Mhm.
I just think it's Buffalo,
A lot of reasons
and
to like that.
I kind of think it's Eagles. I like what I see from Fangio and Barkley, that line.
Zach
They've
Bond's
been
been
there.
incredible.
Yeah, I like, though Philly's been really bad, believe it or not, on special teams. They're one of the worst special
My
teams
man Michael
units.
Clay.
Yeah,
He
they have
might be
not been good.
available. Go get him.
Not good on special teams, but man, they can run the ball and they wear people down. So I'll take Philadelphia, Green Bay. I think I'm leaning towards Philadelphia against Buffalo.
Yeah.
Mahomes can't win every year, and I just feel like because the
bet.
Niners aren't in it, Mahomes will fall short, and then we'll watch the Super Bowl, and it will just seem like, oh yeah, anybody could have won that game, but in reality, Mahomes. To me, it's like Mahomes. The fact that Mahomes didn't make the Pro Bowl is really amazing when you think about the fact they're 15-1. They've had all these close wins. He does this every single week where he just like leads them from behind in the
They're
fourth
the Bizarro
quarter.
Niners. Him and Brock Purdy have like the same stats this year, but the Chiefs are statistically terrible in a lot of categories, but they're the best situational football team of all time. They're late stage Patriotsing you.
Let's hit some supers and then we will bolt for the door. We've got this one. Okay, we got Titus Moeller in the house. Hey, Titus. He says, I want to keep Kyle, but I do think he basically admitted Ricky hadn't shined because he hadn't gotten the ball. So why didn't he get it sooner? I'm questioning Kyle's tests for who can see action.
You should.
I'll say this about Ricky. Ricky wants it. That the one thing I can say about Ricky that I really love is that Ricky is all about it. You know what I mean? Some guys are like, hey, they're going to show up. They'd rather win than lose. They'd rather be successful than fail, but they're not really committed to it. This guy is very serious about his craft. I still have concerns about his durability, about his toughness, about his speed, his separation ability, every part of his game. But there's no doubt this kid wants it. He really wants it. And that should not be, overlooked. That's a major thing. Blood Moon says Kyle, being the head coach, had to hold it together this year. His number one pick almost killed. 2 of his players lost children. One of his coaches lost his wife during the Super Bowl. That's a lot for any man to shoulder. Damn. I mean, their real life did impact the Niners, Jeter. There's no question.
Absolutely. I mean, not least of all the drama of the preseason, where Brandon Ayuk is acting like someone no one had ever met before, and Trent Williams is definitely not flinching on these negotiations, and then it leads into actual real life things. But when you start the season with that drama and the Christian McCaffrey, will he or won't they, and just a general ambivalence towards the severity of the season, combine all of it in the real world issues at hand there, it was toxic. This thing was busted from the jump, and holding it together is an accomplishment in and of itself, but not one that I'm going to celebrate too much.
I'll say this, the Niners had a bad vibe in camp. They really did.
Yeah.
They had a bad vibe in camp. We all said it. Kyle Benz says, Larry, what happened to Coach? I don't know. I don't know unless something. Oh, you mean why we haven't streamed? He's just doing another show, and we just decided that we had streamed together for a few years, and that was fine with me and fine with him, and we'll stream again. I mean, I'm a big fan of the Coach. We're still very close, and I consider Coach a good friend. We'll stream again. We're just taking a break. Dimitri Golovin says Cam Scatabo from ASU for fullback. Is he a Bay Area kid?
Sacramento.
Folsom. Yeah, he is good, man. He's got some talent. That kid was amazing yesterday. Charlie awesome. Sinclair says, I think Kyle punted the season when he brought Brandon Staley into the building. He burned the Chargers' entire organization and defense to the ground. I mean, Brandon Staley didn't have a lot of success there, and then he came here, and they've had a lot of success there, and they haven't had a lot of success here. But once again, it's more about
implies
players.
That anyone knows what the fuck Brandon Staley's doing. No one can give me an answer. Also, like last year they had Anthony Lynn on the staff. Kyle just brings in failed Chargers coaches and then moves them along. So I wish I knew what Brandon Staley did. I wish I knew, and I've been asking people who should know, and they can't give me a straight answer. So there's something there. There's something weird there. I don't like it.
It's always weird when somebody's like, man, this guy's so impressive, except his defenses suck, and it's like, what?
But this should have been a good role for this guy because I do
really
think
impressive.
that he has a lot of interesting concepts that's hard to do. It's hard to manifest them, but like clearly it hasn't
Seemed like
manifested.
a nice guy when I talked to him.
Yeah, I've heard nothing but kind things about him, but that he's not a very good coach as a head coach. And you go, okay, well, you're just putting him in this sort of consultancy role, to steal your term. And then where's any innovation? Where's anything interesting that this defense has done? They're second to last in blitz rate, and they're 27th in pressures. Like, I got an idea. You're not getting to the quarterback. Maybe you blitz more. Like, throw some caution to the wind here, boys. Let's have a little fun. Let's get something interesting happening. I appreciate
these guys sound like they got
much.
These guys sound like they've got the guts of somebody playing bingo.
Right, like Todd Bowles knows that his
B49
defense,
blackout.
Todd Bowles knows his defense sucks, and so he's like, "Oh, we're just going to do some really wild shit all the time because that's the only way to maybe win a game."
Guys, we can't stop anybody, but we're not going to take any chances. It's going to be called slow death. Let's get out there and die slowly.
And hey, our EPA is going to look great, and someone's going to look at this spreadsheet and think we had a good year, boys.
Once again, 3 weeks ago, you know what? I like what Campbell's bringing as far as a veteran, as far as this, that's what I thought. Devondre's really been a key guy for us this year, and he's a guy that we've been able to really lean on. Yeah. And Devondre this and Devondre that. And, he's getting better and better, and it's just an amazing thing. That's like 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Claudaddy Arcade says, will we get LK and Dietz chatting Giants on Thursdays once the football season is over? Sad that we won't have LK covering postseason Niners this year. Dieter and I are not tied just to Niners. We can talk Giants
we
too.
Should be.
Well, hopefully the Giants get some players that are entertaining. There's a Sandy Alcantara rumor out there that I kind of like.
Oh God, what is it? 2019? Let's do this.
Yeah, I don't care about losing out on Corbin Burns. I'd like to see them go after a Pete Alonso. I'd love to see them make a couple trades, maybe to the Padres
what would they trade?
A raise.
Who are they trading? Who's taking their shitty players?
Oh, I mean, there's guys that they could trade that have value. I mean, Marco Luciano has some value. You could trade him.
Not as much as he had this time last year.
Yeah, but I'm just saying they got guys that can trade.
It's like Argentinian currency. Yeah, it has value. I'm just not sure what it's good for.
Yeah, well, I mean, somebody who's patient. I'm not saying you get stars, but the Padres some of these teams that are looking to shed salary, a team like the Giants that has a lot of money should take on a guy like a Rise or that other. Who's the other guy I'm thinking of? Plays first, second.
Fucking Jake Cronenworth.
Take on a couple of those bad deals and have them throw you Dylan Cease. If they're really hurting for money, I'd take some of their bad money off their hands if they throw you Cease. I'd rather do that, believe it or not, than go after some massive, the big money long-term deal to the pitcher for 6 years, 7 years, 8 years with the second-year buyout. The structure it's literally lose-lose. It's getting involved. It's like marrying a woman for money and then not signing the prenup. You know what I mean? It's like, what? I mean, it's like you've got this great agreement. You're marrying her for her money. And then, by the way, you just don't sign the agreement. It's like, what? Yeah. Why would you do that?
It's dumb.
It just makes no sense.
I have no idea how starting pitchers have this kind of leverage. Like, what is it about the fact that all of them always get injured that makes you think that they can just take you for everything you're worth? Because that's the marketplace. Corbin Burns has already reinvented himself once as a major league pitcher. He's on
I've
his
seen this
second
movie.
iteration.
I've seen this movie. It doesn't go well. It's like these long-term deals for pitchers with second-year opt-outs. It's lose-lose. If the guy pitches bad, he opts in and you're screwed. If he gets hurt, he opts in and you're screwed.
Right.
If he pitches great, he opts out and bolts.
The
and you're
goddamn
back
team
looking for another guy.
The goddamn team that just signed Corbin Burns last year signed Jordan Montgomery to the point where the owner is like, we'd do anything to get off of this contract. They
Right.
literally just did this.
Guarantee you the Diamondbacks, before that contract elapses, will be shopping him for pennies on the dollar.
Without a question.
There's no doubt. There's no doubt. And he's been durable to this point, which all that really means is that he's due to break down. Andre Hanna says, hey, guys, love the show. You guys helped me get through my late night work. LOL. Just curious to know, Larry and Dieter, your pick, position, prospect for round 1.
Defensive tackle, but don't do the full Kinlaw thing where you force feed it. Luckily, I think there's about 9 of them that you could take that would be a viable option. I feel like that has to be the number one priority this offseason. There's a lot of places you can go. I wouldn't be afraid to go really anywhere, but this is a great defensive tackle draft early, defensive line in particular early, and that's where I would go. And
that's a great call. I mean, I've looked at this a bunch of times, and I've done a bunch of mock drafts and looked at all the prospects and looked at the Niners situation. Defensive tackle, all roads lead back to defensive tackle. I mean, I know it sounds crazy because they've drafted so many defensive linemen. I know they need offensive linemen.
They
but,
also needed if there's a true guy who you can start opposite Nick Bosa week 1, you can do that too. I think it has to be a defensive lineman, but I want to go with a tackle.
Yeah, I mean,
preferably.
I just think the guy who's perfect is Mason Graham. I mean, he's just so motor.
He ain't going to be there. He's so good.
He's so good. They're saying he may go first, but but then also you look at him and he's not the most explosive guy. He's kind of an old school throwback kind of a guy.
Yeah. He's a strange
there are
player.
some people that if he doesn't quite test out right in the pre-draft, he could wind up falling to 10. I don't think it's outrageous that he could fall to 10. He could fall to 10. But I also like Kenneth Grant.
I'd be willing to trade up for him. Like if he's hanging there at 7,
he's
I'm moving something. Like I feel like there's a limit. Walter Nolan out of Ole Miss is another great option.
Well, I was gonna say, if anybody watched the Gator Bowl tonight, this Gator Bowl, well, first of all, I watched it. It's incredibly entertaining. 52-20, Ole Miss beat Duke. Okay. Yeah. But this is your NFL draft bowl of all time. All time.
The Ole Miss defense, yeah.
The Ole Miss team.
Yeah.
Okay. Jackson Dart tonight, 27 of 35 for 404, 4 touchdowns, no picks.
He's sneaky good.
Okay. He's a big kid. He started at SC, transferred. He's pretty athletic. He's got a howitzer. Then their starting running back. First of all, Dart also ran 12 times for 43 yards.
Yeah, if you liked Bo Nix but wanted him to be slightly more volatile, have I got a quarterback for you? His name is Jackson Dart. They're the exact same thing.
They have a running back at Ole Miss named Ulysses Bentley IV, and he had 5 yards a pop tonight, 2 touchdowns, 14 carries, 70 yards. Bentley is fast. He also had 4 catches for 30 yards. Really impressive player. They also have the number 1 receiver in the country in Trey Harris. Now, he didn't play in this game, I don't believe.
No.
But the number 1 receiver in the country, 6'3".
I like the Arizona kid, but Trey Harris is unbelievable.
Yeah. McMillan. You like McMillan.
Yeah.
But
I'll tell you who I really like, Larry. I went to the Rose Bowl yesterday on a whim. Jeremiah Smith's the greatest fucking wide receiver I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Like I'm not being hyperbolic here.
He's TF.
1-1, 19 years old. Maurice Claret should have won his court case so that Jeremiah Smith could be in the NFL this upcoming season.
This guy was in high school last year.
It is.
I know, it's crazy. He's Julio Jones. He's T.O. He's muscles on top of muscles.
They
speed.
have that.
He's so incredible.
Number
he's
2,
so fast.
Number 2 on that team. Forgive me, I'm going to mispronounce his name. They have another great receiver on that team.
Emeka
Egbuka. He's a first-round receiver. You watch him, you go, oh, that guy's incredible.
Yeah,
and then this 19-year-old child is out here jumping over 3 dudes like he's Randy Moss, and you're like, I had watched him this season and went, wow, that kid's really, really good. Kind of the same way with the Alabama kid and all that. You're like, this guy's really good. Having seen him in person, I'm not convinced that I won't be telling my children's children about him. Like I saw him at the Rose Bowl one year. Unbelievable. That he is. I don't know if I've ever been so smitten with the player in my entire goddamn life, Larry.
Oh, he's terrific.
He's
unbelievable. He's an amazing receiver. I mean, he's just so physically dominant. He's ready to go right now. I mean, he's just incredible. But Ole Miss has got a receiving core that's the second to none. And they've got Antoine Wells.
They go 5 deep.
Who had a 32-yard catch.
Yeah.
They have a tight end named Caden Priestcorn, who's also a really good tight end.
They also
really
just
good
have
tight end.
some names.
Caden Priestcorn.
Ulysses the Fourth.
The guy, though, who's projected to go like in the 7th round, and he's awesome, is the Ole Miss wide receiver Jordan Watkins, who's 7 catches tonight for 180 and 2 touchdowns.
Who's thinking he's going in the 7th? He's like a day
he's
2
in
pick.
all the mocks. They've got him projected in the 6th, 7th round.
These people don't watch college football.
It will change. It will change. Then on defense, Ole Miss has a linebacker DN named Kari Coleman who wears number 23. Great player. Really he was good. Second in tackles tonight with
Explosive.
5. Very explosive, great athlete.
Reminds me a lot of the kid out of A&M last year, Edgerrin, not
Cooper.
James. Cooper.
Yeah.
He has that same kind of suddenness.
Exactly. Great athlete. Jared Ivey, defensive end, going to be drafted. Trey Amos, the corner, outstanding. Outstanding.
They have 2 draftable corners and the safety.
Prince Amulamalian or whatever from the FSU transfer.
Yeah.
He's badass. I mean, they just got dudes.
Oh, and then
it's unbelievable.
They just have 2,
Yam Banks, the safety.
Defensive line is draftable. Nolan's going to go in the first round.
The D tackle, Walter Nolan. They just got guys.
Well, you pay a lot. You pay a lot of money when the entire city of Memphis chips in. This is what you get. You get to go to the Gator Bowl with one of the most talented rosters ever.
By the way, you should watch this game because the Niners need their kicker. Their kicker went 1 for 1 tonight and 6 for 6 on extra points. I don't know. Have you seen this guy, Caden Davis?
I have seen him.
He's an A&M transfer, I believe. He's 6'2", 210. He's from Coppell, Texas, and he is. Let's see on the year. Let's see what he is for the year. He's got 120 points. He's made 82.1% of his field goals. He's 5 of 5 from 20 to 29, 30 of 39, 8 of 10, 40 of 49, 8 of 9, 50 plus 2 of 4, long of 57, 51 of 53 on extra points.
The problem that the Niners have is that the best kicker in college football is at Michigan right now. And he's going to come back, but they can't go back to the well. But if you could draft anybody, you're taking the kid from Michigan. He's unbelievable. Everything's right down the pipe with this kid. So they can't.
No more draft picks on kickers.
Yeah, I was pretty excited about the possibility. Like, they're the highest scoring player on a team. Like, in theory, you should use some draft capital. I thought it was maybe a bit rich going at 99, but he was a pretty hot shot prospect. I didn't get it. I honestly didn't get it, but I was excited by the boldness of it and the fact that I'm a big special teams guy, and I like the respect. But yeah, they're never doing that again. They're never doing that again.
Brock 408 says, I've been waiting for this Dieter. Dieter said play Brock last week, and you've been saying no.
Yeah.
Who was right? Well, I mean, come on. He didn't play. He almost got hurt. I mean, come on. I mean, they dodged a bullet there, but I mean, I understand. Believe me, I understand that it's the NFL and you sign up for 17 weeks. Normally, I would say just play your guys, all of them, right? But this is a unique situation. Why? Because A, the Niners are going nowhere. B, they're not just a bad line. They're a bad line who's now putting in backups. Now, they played well in this game, but I mean, that's 2020 hindsight. We didn't know they were going to play well.
Well,
in
it's
this
also
game.
2020 hindsight that he got injured at the end of the game, and now you can say,
no, 2020. Yeah, no, but that 2020 hindsight's when you look from behind. What I said was ahead of time. He should not play. It's reckless and dangerous and not worth the risk. It's just like anything else. Football coaches balance risk reward all the time. Otherwise, they would just always go with the flea flicker. If they didn't measure risk reward, why would you run anything but the flea flicker? You're faking a run and then another run, a misdirection, and then you're going to flip it back to the quarterback who's going to go up top to some receiver who's running in the clear. Why the hell wouldn't you run the flea flicker every single time? Because it's risk reward.
The best play would be
risk
a fake
reward.
punt.
It's risky. That's why you don't do it every time.
Well,
and that's the
why Kyle
same
Shanahan
reason
would
why
never.
Kyle Shanahan runs on 3rd and 11 or 3rd and 15 inside of his own 20 sometimes and punts because he's trying to manage risk. So my whole point is just that, hey, you manage risk all the time. Why wouldn't you manage risk with your starting quarterback, especially when you're operating behind a bad line? I wouldn't put let's just say this. I look at it this way. It's like a car with bad tires. Would you want your children on a wet road with a car that had less than stellar tires? No. Why? Because the odds are it's going to be fine.
Your child is a professional race car driver.
I'm just saying, it's like odds are it's going to be fine, but you play the odds. That's the way we do things. That's how people make decisions.
No one would play football if we were playing the odds. It's a very dumb game intrinsically. I'd also like to note that culture-wise, you cannot have your starting quarterback, tapping out. And sure, you can sugarcoat it, this and that, but I think that you have to set a tone.
Stafford's not playing this week.
Well, Stafford's going to the playoffs. They did it last year. I had no problem with them benching guys before the playoffs last year. You're benching guys as what, a reward for playing like shit all year? Fuck that.
I'm saying don't put guys in harm's way. Once again, where's the barometer? The barometer is, what does the line move if they're not in it in the game? And the line does move without Brock Purdy.
Oh,
so
yeah.
no, I'm not playing Brock Purdy. I mean, whatever. I thought I was right then. I look more right today. Whatever. I'm not gonna boast on it. I don't really care. But I told you how I honestly felt. I don't know. I was the only one who felt that way, so obviously I wasn't right. But it seemed like I was a little bit of a soothsayer on that one. Anthony Catania says the quarterback from Ohio State looks good. He is a transfer from
Kansas State,
and he's a big, strong, athletic kid. There's no question about that. Andre Hanna says regarding Brock Purdy. What's that?
I wouldn't draft him.
Yeah, I don't like him. There's something about him I don't like, and I haven't watched enough of him.
Inability to make a throw with any pressure whatsoever, that would be an issue. Yeah.
No, to me, it was the way he finished the game against Oregon earlier this year, where there's like 3 seconds on the clock, and instead of sliding down with 1 second and kicking the field goal, he ran for 3 seconds, and then it was like, whoa, the clock ran out. It's like, no, I don't know what was going on there. That was a major fuck up. Andre Hanna, regarding Brock Purdy's contract extension, how do you keep the player hungry and motivated if you can't pay your franchise quarterback a top 10 quarterback market value salary? Remember, he saved the team from their massive miss with Lance. How do you keep your players hungry and motivated?
I know,
if you don't pay?
it's a good question, because the 49ers have made it a principle to pay top players top dollar because of what they think that says to the locker room. And we can parse into all the nitty-gritty of that some other time.
Yeah.
Ultimately, the question you have to ask yourself with Brock Purdy is this, because you're not letting him leave, right? That was originally what I would ask people. Are you willing to let Brock Purdy walk out the door? And then enough people said sure that I go, oh, these aren't rational actors. Like, I can't reason with these people. You're going to let Brock Purdy walk out the door for what? Okay, so let's not even pretend as if that's an option, because they're not. They're not going to let him walk out the door. So the question is, would you rather pay him now or have to figure this out later? The question is, do you want the Dak Prescott situation, or do you want the Daniel Jones situation? Because those are the best case, worst case scenarios, right?
I brought it up on CanBR tonight. I'm like, hey, pay him now, pay him later, or pay him never. And some people want to pay him never. Some people want to move off. I get it. But those are the three options.
I can appreciate the theory on that. Much harder to do in practice.
To what?
To just never pay him. To let him
No,
walk.
never pay him means you go in a different direction and you probably trade him. You have him under contract for another year. I mean, if the Niners, let's just say, I mean, this could go any number of ways. We don't know how it's going to go. Let's just say Kyle's agent, Kyle Strong and the agent for Brock comes to the Niners and says something outrageous. Hey, we have been underpaid. You have gotten advantages, and because of that, we want a contract that reflects the disadvantages that he's already endured, or some crazy stance. And so we want $70 million a year because that will compensate him for the years that he was, really good for you and making $1 million. Okay.
Good luck to you on a different team.
Yeah. So let's just say they come through with a crazy stance like that. The 49ers may have to have a plan B. And
Absolutely.
that plan B is probably one of these reclamation project quarterbacks. And then the question is, then what would you do? You would what, go sign one of those reclamation project quarterbacks, and then Brock Purdy would obviously be traded somewhere.
I'd go get JJ McCarthy.
There you go. There's another one.
Let that.
I mean,
I've
I've heard other people suggest go get Anthony Richardson.
Sure.
I've heard people say go get Will Levis. I've heard
I would not
people
do
say
that, but sure.
Yeah. No, but I've heard people, basically.
I'd rather have Mason Rudolph than Will Levis.
You can make an argument that
Go get Russell Wilson.
Go get a young or old quarterback.
Joe Flacco. You'll have options. None of them will be as good as Brock Purdy. So
maybe.
But again, 70. That's not a reasonable number. And if they don't want to be reasonable, the Niners have no responsibility there.
It's also about what are these guys going to become? Because Baker Mayfield's playing great right now. I don't think he played this well before. No. Sam Darnold definitely never played like this before.
No question.
So is there a quarterback that's gettable, that's cheap, that could play at an exceptionally high level, and that you could get around paying Brock Purdy huge money? I mean, you got to at least think about every single option. Why? Because right now you can go in with the greatest intentions. Brock's our guy. We love him. We're loyal. He's our guy. We're convinced he's our guy. Fine. But if they have some crazy stance, you're going to have to pivot and come up with somebody else. And in that case, what's it going to be? Now, we've seen teams come up with reclamation quarterbacks this year, and that's not an unattractive route. So it will be interesting because, one, we don't know who's clamoring for Brock Purdy or not. So how much leverage does he really have? You can ask for the moon, but if nobody in the league is willing to pay you, what are you worth? I guess you're worth whatever either the team that you're on is willing to pay you, or your agent can go fetch some consensus opinion of what you're worth from other teams in the league and bring it back to the Niners. I don't know how else you would really gauge his worth. You know what I mean? What is Brock Purdy worth? What exactly is his price tag? What should it be? It's hard to say. It really, if I wanted to be an attorney, I could make an argument for $65 million. I could also make an argument for $30 million. Mm-hmm. That's a big disparity there, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I can make an argument that Brock Purdy doesn't exist and this is all simulation. If we want to get existential,
you can make a compelling argument that he is worth $35 million because of the way Baker's playing. But you could also make an argument that he should be paid $65 million because of dumb moves that other franchises have made, that have set precedent. So there's lots of different ways to look at this.
This is how everything in the world is priced. And the idea, fundamentally, your argument is that he's not actually hitting the free market. So why do you have to pay top dollar? And it is opportunity cost at play. You want to go get somebody else? Okay, here's the problem. You want to go? I'm not saying you're saying this.
We're assuming he wants top dollar. By the way, we
don't know.
Everybody wants more. But you know what? Brock's a pretty smart guy. He's pretty shrewd. He may know that there's a number, Dieter, that he wants to make, and he also may know there's a number that if he made it, he wouldn't win. He may have more knowledge of
Well,
this.
I
There
call
may be more
bullshit
nuance.
on there being a number. Like the AAV is all vanity because the true value is in fully guaranteed money and how easily the team can get out of the contract. Right? Like I'm not going to go through it, but like there's like $10 million per year against the cap on Jordan Love's contract. Oh, but he's getting $55 million a year. Not really. Not really. And you look at, Joe Burrow's contract, they could jump out of it next year if they wanted to. They don't want to, and they'll restructure it and whatever. But like it's about the structure of the contract. Diamador Lenore signs a $92 million contract. Absolutely blows every other Nickelback out of the water historically when it comes to AAV. There's like $12 million really guaranteed on that, and they can dump them after next year, and it costs them like $2 million. There's no security in that contract, but it got a good headline because it's way more money than anyone got, but he's not going to see it if he doesn't play at this level every year for the next 5 years. So the idea of, there's going to be a number, and here's how this goes. He's going to sign for $62 million a year, and people are going to lose their fucking mind. And then we're going to look at the contract, and we're going to go like, they can get out of this in like a year and a half. Easy. And there's like 1 year where there's like $100 million on the cap. That's never going to happen and will be smoothed over with ease. This contract's going to have so much funny business in it, you're not even going to even understand what's happening. Even if you were good at this stuff, which I'm not, like it's going to have so much, it's going to get prorogued to kingdom come. And everyone's going to go, $62 million a year, that's ridiculous, even though it's the exact same number against the cap as Jimmy Garoppolo got. Jimmy Garoppolo was 21% of the cap when he signed his contract. 62 is 21% of the cap when Brock Purdy's contract kicks in. But oh my God.
I could see that. I could see it being a very convoluted type deal where you get all kinds of people arguing about it. Yeah. August Fam says Brock is 25. Any 25-year-old drafted in the first round would get paid, and every excuse that a first rounder would also be considered the next great player.
Mm-hmm. He's making the argument that if Brock came in with pedigree and performed the way that he's performed, there wouldn't be a question. And I think you're right, because that would be Trevor Lawrence or that would be Tua. But because people are still holding on to the belief that Brock Purdy can't be good, because if he was good, why'd he get drafted last? Implying that people in the NFL are good at this and know what they're doing consistently, which has been proven irrevocably incorrect. Because people hold on to that, they downplay the possibility that everyone missed, including the 49ers 6 times before they drafted Brock Purdy. So, yeah.
He reminds me, he reminds me a lot of Hurts. Hurts is having success, but he's having success now, behind a good line with a good defense. Last year, he looked really, really bad, especially in the playoffs. So, to me, it's like if you could build a big, physical, strong offensive line, get him some great weapons, a great defense, I'd take my chances for the next 5 or 6 years with Brock Purdy. Charlie Sinclair says, would you take Harbaugh and Herbert or Brock, quarterback X, and Kyle going forward? What's quarterback X? I don't get that.
I think that's the future Hall of Famer that you imply they should be drafting. I'll take Herbert and Harbaugh any day.
Yeah, I mean, if you're just right now, how could you not go with Herbert and Harbaugh?
I mean,
Herbert's got a howitzer, even though he doesn't win.
Harbaugh is so incredible.
Harbaugh is done nothing but win, even though it's like I think he'll wear out. Yeah, it's interesting though. You could definitely who's going to win more rings? I don't know. It's hard to say. I mean, right now, the way it looks right now, how do you not go Herbert and Harbaugh? Larry T says, get rid of the old age, bad contracts next year, and don't pay Purdy. We could draft Arch Manning in 2026. Another guy that we know nothing about. It'll be a tank year. His uncles will help him.
I love living in the hypothetical realm. I think it's really fun. I would not want my franchise running in that mode. I would rather have them, I don't know, doing what the Lions went all in on Jared Goff, right? Jared Goff's a player who the Rams gave up on. They overtly know that.
That's what I'm saying. It's like the almost the best way to find a quarterback is the reclamation project.
Well, it's not even that. It's just take somebody
hard to play the
and
position.
go. You're living this way. So these are people who clearly don't live in the real world, who want to operate entirely on this hypothetical realm of like, oh, well, maybe one day a 9 or a 10 will come and really like me. Sorry, sometimes you have to settle in life. Like, there's a weird stat that arranged marriages in India are way more successful than ones that just people find normal. Like, sometimes there's something to be said for picking a direction and just fucking going and making the most of it. But constantly waiting the way that Jacksonville, these teams with this wishful fancy that just things are going to magically happen for them, it never happens for them because the world doesn't just bestow good graces upon people who don't go out and do something. You make your own luck. Pick a direction and start going with it. I would much rather be the Rams or the Rams had Jared Goff, paid Jared Goff, traded Jared Goff, got Matt Stafford. Okay, did they make a mistake in paying Jared Goff? Absolutely. They pivoted off of it. They made something happen. They made their own luck. The 49ers, we're gonna dick around. Let's dick around with Brock Purdy the same way that Dallas dicked around with Dak Prescott. And instead of spending our mental time and good efforts in trying to make the best team around and already paid Dak Prescott, we've tried to, we got to figure out that we spent all of our mental energy on how to not pay Dak Prescott. Now the team around him sucks. You know, people talk about the cost certainty of just getting in Purdy's contract early. What about just the certainty of being able to operate moving forward with this on the books? It's not a cost certainty. It's a mental energy certainty. It's handled. And that's the biggest question you have going into every single year. Who's our quarterback? Oh, well, maybe the next Patrick Mahomes will show up. That's not how it works. You make your own luck. You pick a quarterback and you go. And if you're thinking that Brock isn't the best quarterback in the world, you're right. But there's a shit ton worse. And then you're constantly, every year you're going in going, I don't know if we have a shot. I love the team, but I don't know if we have a shot because I don't know if we have the quarterback. And if you ever think that with Brock Purdy, guess what? You can just bounce. You just jump out of it because that's how contracts work in the NFL. We're not signing someone to a 13-year guaranteed deal like Shota Iganawa or whatever. You can get out after 2 years if you need to. So just pick a direction and start swimming, hoping that you're going to get saved floating out here in the ocean. Pick a direction and start swimming.
Is there a reclamation project quarterback that intrigues you?
No.
None of them.
Because if Baker Mayfield gets to bring Mike Evans and Bucky Irving and Liam Cohen to town, that'd be great. And if Sam Darnold gets to bring the best wide receiver core, the Ole Miss of wide receiver cores of the NFL, and Kevin O'Connell with them, great. By the way, Brock Purdy would be so much better than both of those guys in those situations. Like Brock Purdy with Justin Jefferson and Hawkinson, and like, are you kidding me? That'd be incredible. KOC, you don't think that Brock Purdy would kick ass if he had Mike Evans and at a time Chris Godwin to throw to, and Bucky Irving in the backfield and Tristan Wirfs protecting his blind side? Like Liam Cohen out here calling cool stuff. Like I find the slander ridiculous. Like I'm not arguing that he's an elite guy, like he's like cream of the crop, but my goodness, like how spoiled must you be to think that Brock Purdy's like not worth your time, effort, or money? Like, yeah, y'all remember Trey Lance? Like we just did this. Y'all remember Jimmy? We just did. Like this guy's awesome. He's awesome, and you want to dick around with it. Because what? Oh, there might. Yeah, he's a 7 or an 8, but there might be a 9 or 10 out there for me. How conceited must you be to think that you're better than Brock Purdy? That you deserve better.
Who last year was 4th in the MVP voting,
right?
And this year, in his disaster down year, is a Pro Bowl alternate.
100%.
That's going to do it for us. Thanks to everybody. Thanks to Better. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle. Thanks to Dieter. Thanks to all of you guys. Dieter, when do you hit the leader next?
I'll be on tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night after me.
I'll follow you.
There you go. Check me out tomorrow night at 6:00 on KMBR for Niners Nightly. I'll be down in Santa Clara tomorrow. You can catch me tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. with Damon Bruce. I will not have Chase Sr. on tomorrow morning. Chase is doing some traveling, so he will not be in his regular spot on the Krug Show. But then Niners Nightly tomorrow at 6. As I said, JD is going to join us.
Nice.
I believe in the second half of that hour, and then then I'm on to my weekend. Saturday, of course, we will have 49er Forecast at 10 a.m. Looking forward to that. And Chris Babcock, who's one of my favorites, the stat man for Greg and Tim, is going to stop by on Saturday.
Nice.
I love chopping it up with Babcock. So looking forward to that. Have a great night, everybody. Once again, thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of the Krug Show. Thanks to Sharp Corner Sports Cards and Collectibles. And thanks to Better for being a proud sponsor of the Krug Show as well. And have a great night, everybody. Dieter, good to see you. Peace.
Yeah, never met a man I've been